Rick Romert Rales was 44 years old. He worked as a real estate agent in Guelph, Ontario. He was very good at his job, known for being friendly and outgoing. Rick loved to make people laugh with his jokes and pranks. One of his most famous pranks was when he forced his wife, Carly, to get a haircut by getting her down to the floor and shaving off all of her hair. He posted a video of the prank on social media, and it went viral, getting thousands of views. This prank caused a lot of tension between Rick and Carly. Rick lived in a nice house in Guelph with Carly and their 2 kids in Sure and Wheels. Rick went to school in Guelph and later studied business at a local college. He married Carly when he was 30, and they had been together for 14 years. Rick's parents, Tom and Betty, lived nearby and were very close to him and his family. He also had a brother named Tim, who lived in Toronto. Rick was very active on social media, especially on Facebook and YouTube. He loved sharing funny videos and pictures of his life. He had a lot of followers who enjoyed his content. Rick was always thinking of new ideas for pranks and jokes to share with his audience. He liked to stay current with trends and often talked about popular shows and events, like Canadian Idol and hockey. In the days before his death, Rick was busy with work, meeting clients and showing houses. He was also planning more pranks and spending time with his family. Rick seemed happy and full of energy. He had a big personality and was always the center of attention at gatherings. Rick's dream was to become even more famous and successful. He wanted to grow his social media following and maybe even get his own TV show. He often talked about these dreams with his friends and family. Rick was a very driven person, always working towards his goals. Despite his playful nature, Rick cared deeply about his family. He wanted to provide a good life for Carly and their children. However, the forced haircut prank had caused a big rift between him and Carly. She felt humiliated and angry, which led to a lot of tension in their home. This tension was still present in the days leading up to Rick's tragic death. On January 15, 2009, the weather in Guelph, Ontario was cold and snowy. It was early in the morning, around 7:00 a.m. The sun was just starting to rise, but the sky was still gray. Carly Romert Rales, Rick's wife, woke up and went to check on Rick. She found him in their bathroom. He was naked and lying in the bathtub, which was filled with water. A hairdryer was in the water, and it looked like Rick had been electrocuted. Carly was in shock. She screamed and called 911 right away. Her voice was shaky as she tried to explain what had happened. She told the operator that her husband was not breathing and that it looked like he had been electrocuted. The 911 operator tried to calm her down and told her to stay on the line until help arrived. The first person to arrive at the scene was Officer Alan Carter. He was a local police officer who had been with the Guelph Police Department for 10 years. When he entered the house, he saw Carly sitting on the floor, crying and shaking. She pointed to the bathroom and told him that Rick was in there. Officer Carter went into the bathroom and saw Rick in the tub. It was clear that Rick was dead. Carly was very upset and kept saying that Rick's death was an accident. The police were not sure what to think. They needed to find out more about what had happened that morning and whether Rick's death was really an accident or something more sinister. As news of Rick's death spread, the community was shocked. Rick was well known in Guelph, and many people couldn't believe that he was gone. His friends and family were heartbroken, and everyone wanted to know what had really happened in that bathroom on that cold January morning. The Guelph police arrived quickly at the Romert Rales home on January 15, 2009. Detective Collie McKinney led the investigation. Detective McKinney was known for her sharp mind and had worked on many important cases in Guelph. She and her team immediately began to carefully examine the scene. The bathroom where Rick was found was very clean, except for the bathtub. Rick's body was in the tub, and the water was still. The hairdryer was floating in the water, and it was clear that he had been electrocuted. Detective McKinney thought the scene looked suspiciously neat, as if someone had set it up to look like an accident. Detective McKinney and her team used various tools to gather evidence. They took photographs of the bathroom and the rest of the house. They also collected fingerprints and any other physical evidence they could find. They tested the hairdryer to see if it was working properly and looked for any signs of tampering. The police talked to Carly Romert Rales first. She was very upset and kept saying that Rick's death was an accident. She explained that Rick often played pranks and that he might have been trying to do something funny with the hairdryer. However, the police found it hard to believe that Rick would risk his life for a prank. Next, Detective McKinney talked to neighbors and friends. They wanted to know if anyone had seen or heard anything unusual that morning. Some neighbors mentioned that they had heard Carly and Rick arguing the night before. Others said that Rick had been acting strangely lately, posting more and more prank videos on social media. The police also looked into Rick's social media accounts. They watched the video of the forced haircut prank he had done on Carly. The video showed a laughing Rick pinning Carly down to the floor and shaving off her hair while she screamed and cried. This video had caused a lot of tension in their marriage, and the police thought it might be a motive for Carly to harm Rick. As they continued to investigate, the police found more evidence that suggested Rick's death was not an accident. They discovered that the bathroom floor was not wet, which could have caused Rick to slip. They also found some footprints that didn't match Rick's or Carly's shoes. This made them think that someone else might have been in the house that morning. Detective McKinney and her team worked tirelessly to piece together the clues. They used all the tools at their disposal, including forensic analysis and interviews with everyone who knew Rick and Carly. They were determined to find out the truth about what had happened in that bathroom on the cold January morning. The investigation was complex, and the police knew they had to be thorough. Every detail mattered, and they were determined to uncover the truth behind Rick Romert Rails' tragic death. The first suspect in Rick Romert Rails' death was his wife, Carly Romert Rails. Carly was 36 years old and worked as an interior designer. She was known for being very talented and creative, with a keen eye for detail. Her work was popular among high-end clients, and she had a good reputation in Guelph. Carly was usually calm and mild-mannered, but the forced haircut prank had pushed her to her limits. It caused a significant strain on her marriage and her relationship with her young children, Insure and Wheels, named by people on the internet as part of a publicity stunt. The police brought Carly in for questioning. Detective Collie McKinney led the interrogation. Carly looked tired and upset, but she tried to stay composed. She explained that Rick's prank had humiliated her. He had shared the video of the prank on social media, and it had gone viral. Carly felt embarrassed and angry. Despite this, she insisted that she had not hurt Rick. She said that his death was a terrible accident. Detective McKinney asked Carly about the night before Rick's death. Carly admitted that they had argued. She was still angry about the prank, and Rick didn't seem to understand how much he had hurt her. Carly said that after the argument, Rick went to sleep in the guest room, and she stayed in their bedroom. The police also asked Carly about the morning she found Rick's body. Carly said she woke up early and went to check on Rick. She found him in the bathtub, with a hairdryer in the water. She was in shock and didn't know what to do, so she called 911. Carly's stories seemed consistent, but the police needed more evidence. To learn more, Detective McKinney and her team looked into Carly's background. They found that Carly had a clean record and was well-liked by her friends and clients. However, they also discovered that Carly had been under a lot of stress lately. The forced haircut prank had not only hurt her emotionally, but also affected her work. Some clients had seen the video and canceled their contracts with her. The police also examined Carly's social media accounts. They saw that she had posted several messages expressing her frustration and sadness after the prank. Some of her friends had commented, offering support and telling her to stay strong. The messages showed that Carly was deeply affected by what Rick had done. Despite Carly's claims that she was innocent, the police knew they had to consider all possibilities. They continued to investigate, looking for any clues that might prove or disprove Carly's involvement in Rick's death. They were determined to find the truth and bring justice to Rick and his family. The second suspect in Rick Romert Rails' death was Mike Chadel, Rick's business partner. Mike was 40 years old and known for being very practical and business-focused. He was the serious one in their partnership, balancing out Rick's playful nature. However, Mike had become increasingly frustrated with Rick's lack of professionalism and the distractions caused by Rick's social media antics. One of Rick's pranks had even forced Mike to make out with Carly on camera, adding to his embarrassment. The police brought Mike in for questioning. Detective Collie McKinney led the interrogation. Mike looked calm but tired. He explained that he had been working hard to keep their real estate business afloat. The recent financial issues had put a lot of stress on him. He admitted that Rick's constant pranks and social media stunts were causing problems for the business. However, Mike insisted that he would never hurt Rick. Detective McKinney asked Mike about his relationship with Rick. Mike said that they had been friends for many years and had built their business together. He admitted that Rick's behavior had become more erratic lately, especially after the haircut prank. Mike said he had talked to Rick about focusing more on their business and less on social media, but Rick didn't seem to take him seriously. The police also asked Mike about his whereabouts on the morning of Rick's death. Mike said he had been at home, preparing for a meeting with a client. He had no alibi, but he seemed confident that he had nothing to hide. Detective McKinney found Mike's demeanor interesting. He was calm and collected, which made her wonder if he was hiding something. The police looked into Mike's background. They found that he had a clean record and was respected in the business community. However, they also discovered that Mike had been dealing with a lot of stress. The financial issues and Rick's antics were taking a toll on him. Some colleagues mentioned that Mike had expressed frustration with Rick's behavior and had even considered ending their partnership. The police examined Mike's emails and phone records. They found several messages where Mike had complained about Rick's pranks and the impact they were having on their business. In one email, Mike had written to a friend saying, "I don't know how much more of Rick's nonsense I can take." This showed that Mike was at his wit's end. Despite Mike's claims of innocence, the police knew they had to consider him a serious suspect. They continued to gather evidence and question other people who knew Mike and Rick. They needed to find out if Mike's frustration had reached a breaking point and if he had a motive to harm his business partner. The investigation into Mike's involvement in Rick's death was complex. The police were determined to uncover the truth and ensure that justice was served. The third suspect in Rick Romert's death was Emily Harris Kang, Rick's social media manager. Emily was 22 years old, ambitious, and very tech-savvy. She helped Rick grow his online presence and loved the thrill of internet fame. Emily enjoyed the benefits that came with managing a popular social media account, but her relationship with Rick was complicated. They had a secret affair, and Emily was jealous of Rick's wife, Carly. The police brought Emily in for questioning. Detective Collie McKinney led the interrogation. Emily looked nervous but tried to stay calm. She explained that she had worked closely with Rick for over a year. She helped him plan and post his prank videos, including the infamous forced haircut prank. Emily said that Rick was always full of ideas and that she was just following his lead. Detective McKinney asked Emily about her relationship with Rick. Emily hesitated but eventually admitted that they had been romantically involved. She said that Rick had promised to leave Carly for her, but he never did. This made her feel used and betrayed. Emily insisted that she cared about Rick and would never hurt him. The police also asked Emily about her whereabouts on the morning of Rick's death. Emily said she was at her apartment, working on new content for Rick's social media accounts. She provided her computer as evidence, showing the work she had done that morning. Detective McKinney noted that Emily's alibi seemed solid, but decided to dig deeper. The police looked into Emily's background. They found that she had always been a high achiever, excelling in school and earning a scholarship to a local university. Emily was very active on social media and had a large following of her own. However, they also discovered that Emily had a history of jealousy and had been involved in several heated arguments with other women over Rick. Despite Emily's claims of innocence, the police knew they had to consider her a serious suspect. They continued to gather evidence and question other people who knew her and Rick. They needed to find out if Emily's jealousy and frustration had driven her to harm Rick. The investigation into Emily's involvement in Rick's death was thorough. The police were determined to uncover the truth and ensure that justice was served. On January 20, 2009, the weather in Guelph, Ontario was cold and snowy. It was around 10 o'clock a.m. when the police received a call from a neighbor of the Romert's family. The neighbor had found something unusual while walking their dog near a park close to the house. The neighbor noticed a small hidden camera in the bushes and knew the camera hadn't been there before and called the police immediately. Detective Collie McKinney and her team arrived quickly. They carefully retrieved the camera and took it to the police station for examination. The team was surprised to find that the camera was still working and had recorded footage. They hoped it might provide new clues about Rick's death. At the station, the police reviewed the footage. They discovered that Rick had installed several hidden cameras around the house. He had set them up after the forced haircut prank, suspecting that Carly might try to get revenge. The footage showed the night of January 14 when Carly and Rick had a heated argument about the prank. Rick had accused Carly of being too sensitive, while Carly had expressed how humiliated and hurt she felt. The most crucial part of the footage was from the morning of January 15. The camera in the bathroom showed Rick entering the tub with the hairdryer. At first, it seemed like he was playing another prank. However, as Rick plugged in the hairdryer, he slipped on the wet floor and accidentally knocked the hairdryer into the tub, causing his own electrocution. The footage revealed that Rick's death was not a premeditated murder. Detective McKinney and her team were shocked by this discovery. They realized that Rick had set up the cameras to catch Carly, but instead they had captured his own fatal mistake. This new evidence changed the direction of the investigation completely. The police called Carly to the station to show her the footage. Carly was devastated and broke down in tears. She couldn't believe that Rick's death was an accident and not a result of foul play. Detective McKinney explained to Carly that Rick had set up the cameras because he was afraid she might retaliate for the prank. Carly was heartbroken, knowing that Rick had mistrusted her and that his actions had led to his own death. With this new evidence, the police were able to close the case. They informed the community and the media about the true cause of Rick's death. The community was relieved but saddened by the tragic accident. The investigation had revealed the truth, and the police have ensured that justice was served. When the police announced that Rick Rombert-Rail's death was an accident, the community of Guelph, Ontario, was both shocked and relieved. The news conference on January 25, 2009, explained the events leading up to Rick's death. However, the authorities decided to proceed with a trial to bring all facts to light. The trial began in early February 2009. The prosecutor, Alan Allen, 45, was known for his no-nonsense approach. He was determined to present all the evidence, including Rick's emails and the footage from the hidden cameras. Allen argued that while Rick's death was accidental, it was important to understand the full context and the events leading up to it. The defense attorney, Margaret Golly, 38, was equally determined to clear Carly Rombert-Rail's name. Margaret was compassionate and had a reputation for defending those wrongfully accused. She presented evidence of Carly's character and how the prank deeply affected her emotionally, but did not make her a murderer. During the trial, the courtroom was tense. Carly sat quietly, supported by her family. Rick's friends and family watched the proceedings, their faces showing a mix of sadness and relief. The prosecutor played the footage showing Rick slipping and knocking the hairdryer into the bathtub. This was the key evidence that confirmed his death was an accident. The jury deliberated for 2 days. On February 15, 2009, they returned with their verdict. They found that no one was guilty of murder and that Rick's death was indeed an accident. The judge echoed this sentiment in his closing remarks, emphasizing the tragic nature of the event and how it was a result of a series of unfortunate incidents rather than intentional harm. Carly's reaction to the verdict was a mix of relief and sorrow. She was grateful to be exonerated, but deeply mourned her husband. The community's response was supportive. Many people offered their condolences to Carly and her children, Insure and Wheels, understanding the emotional turmoil they had endured. The trial's conclusion brought a sense of closure to Rick's family and friends. They struggled with the loss but found some comfort in knowing the truth. Carly decided to move away from Guelph to start fresh with her children, hoping to rebuild their lives away from the memories of Rick's tragic death. The police officers involved in the case, especially Detective Collie McKinney, felt a sense of accomplishment for uncovering the truth. However, they also felt the weight of the tragedy and the impact it had on everyone involved. The trial's verdict and sentencing brought an end to the legal process, allowing everyone to begin the slow process of healing and moving forward. After the trial ended, the people involved in Rick Rombert-Rail's case tried to move on with their lives. Carly Rombert-Rail, who had been cleared of any wrongdoing, decided to leave Guelph, Ontario. She felt that starting fresh in a new place would be best for her and her children, Insure and Wheels. In March 2009, Carly moved to Toronto, where she continued her work as an interior designer. She focused on rebuilding her life and creating a stable environment for her kids. Mike Chadel, Veio, Rick's business partner, was also deeply affected by the events. After the trial, he took some time off to reflect and reconsider his future. By mid-2009, Mike decided to step away from the real estate business. He sold his shares and moved to Vancouver to start anew, focusing on a different career path. Mike wanted to leave behind the memories of the stressful partnership and the tragic loss of his friend. Emily Harris Kang, the social media manager, found it hard to cope with the loss and the scandal surrounding Rick's death. She took a break from social media to focus on her mental health. By the end of 2009, Emily had decided to pursue further education, enrolling in a marketing program at a local university. She aimed to rebuild her career with a fresh perspective and new skills. Detective Collie McKinney and her team continued their work in the Guelph Police Department. The case had been a significant challenge for them, and solving it brought a sense of accomplishment. Detective McKinney was praised for her thorough investigation and dedication to uncovering the truth.
She used the experience to mentor new officers, emphasizing the importance of attention to detail and perseverance in solving cases. Rick's family and friends had mixed feelings about the outcome. While they were relieved to know that his death was an accident, the loss remained painful. They struggled with the fact that Rick's own actions had led to his tragic end. Over time, they found some comfort in remembering the good times they shared with him. The community of Guelph also felt the impact of the case. The news had shocked the town, but the trial and its conclusion helped bring a sense of closure. People were more cautious and aware of the importance of addressing personal conflicts and mental health issues. By the end of 2009, those involved in Rick's life had begun to heal and move forward. The case remained a reminder of how quickly life can change and the importance of compassion and understanding in difficult times. This case is a stark reminder of how quickly a practical joke can spiral into tragedy. Rick's playful nature and Carly's desperate reaction led to a heartbreaking series of events, forever altering the lives of everyone involved.
Lena Kandine was a 36-year-old kindergarten teacher living in Tucson, Arizona. She worked at Sunshine Elementary School, where she was loved by her students and colleagues. Known for her patience and kindness, Lena was the type of teacher who made learning fun and exciting. She often used colorful posters in her classroom, making sure every child felt special and included. Lena lived in a cozy house on a quiet street with her husband Richard and 11-month-old son Dolphin. Her friends often said that Lena's home was filled with laughter and warmth. She had a knack for decorating and often shopped to find the perfect items to make her house a home. Lena's family was very important to her. She was close to her parents, who lived nearby and often helped with Dolphin. Lena dreamed of opening her own daycare center someday, where she could help even more children grow and learn. Lena's friends described her as caring and always willing to lend a hand. She was the type of person who would drop everything to help a friend in need. She volunteered at her local church and was involved in community events. Her warm personality and dedication to her work made her a cherished member of the community. In September 2010, Lena was busy preparing for the new school year. She spent her days setting up her classroom, planning lessons, and making sure everything was perfect for her students. She also spent a lot of time with Dolphin, planning a big celebration for his first birthday. She wanted it to be a special day, full of balloons, cake, and love. She had even ordered a custom cake from a local bakery and invited all her family and friends. In the days leading up to her death, Lena was looking forward to the future. She was excited about the new school year and celebrating Dolphin's first birthday. Her dreams of opening a daycare center and her plans for her son's future were a testament to her loving and nurturing spirit. On the morning of September 12, 2010, the sun was shining brightly in Tucson, Arizona. It was a warm, pleasant day, typical for that time of year. At around 8:00 a.m., Patty Martins, Lena Klandine's close friend and neighbor, decided to check on Lena. They had planned to go for a morning walk, something they often did together to stay fit and catch up on each other's lives. When Lena didn't show up at the usual time, Patty became worried. Patty walked over to Lena's house, which was just a few doors down from her own. She knocked on the door, but there was no answer. She called Lena's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Feeling uneasy, Patty tried the door and found it unlocked. She slowly stepped inside, calling out Lena's name, but the house was eerily quiet. As Patty made her way through the house, she noticed that everything seemed normal at first. Dolphin's toys were scattered in the living room, and the kitchen had breakfast dishes on the table. But when she reached the bedroom, she was met with a horrifying scene. Lena's lifeless body was lying on the floor, and the room was in disarray. The TV was smashed, and a mirror was shattered, indicating a struggle had taken place. Patty was in shock and felt a wave of fear and sadness wash over her. She quickly grabbed her phone and dialed 911, her hands trembling as she tried to explain what she had found. Her voice was shaky, and she had to repeat herself several times before the operator understood the gravity of the situation. Patty stayed outside, pacing back and forth, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe what had happened to her friend. Neighbors began to gather, whispering among themselves and speculating about what could have led to such a tragic event. The news quickly spread, and soon local media outlets like the Tucson Sentinel were reporting on the shocking discovery. Lena's death sent shockwaves through the community. People who knew her were heartbroken and in disbelief. How could something so terrible happen to someone so kind and loving? As the police began their investigation, everyone hoped for answers and justice for Lena. When the police arrived at Lena Klondine's house on September 12, 2010, it was a warm, sunny morning in Tucson, Arizona. Detectives J. Ramirez and Maria Torres, known for their fast response and careful attention to detail at the investigation. The patrol car's flashing lights quickly drew the attention of neighbors, who watched anxiously from their yards and windows. Detectives Ramirez and Torres were both experienced investigators. Ramirez, a tall man in his early 40s, was known for his methodical approach and calm demeanor. Torres, in her late 30s, was sharp-eyed and known for her ability to notice even the smallest details at a crime scene. Together, they made a formidable team. As they entered the house, they were met with a grim scene. The living room showed no signs of a struggle, but the bedroom told a different story. Lena's body lay on the floor, with clear marks of strangulation on her neck. The room was in chaos. A TV lay shattered on the floor, and a large mirror was broken, its shards scattered everywhere. It was clear that a violent confrontation had taken place. The detectives began their investigation immediately. They called in a team of forensic experts who meticulously collected evidence from the scene. They took fingerprints from the broken TV and mirror and gathered samples of hair and fibers that might have been left by the attacker. They also photographed the entire room, documenting the disarray and any potential clues. Outside, neighbors gathered, whispering and speculating about what had happened. Reporters from local news stations like KVOA and the Tucson Sentinel arrived, setting up cameras and interviewing anyone willing to talk. The community was in shock, struggling to comprehend the tragedy that had struck their quiet neighborhood. Detective Ramirez spoke briefly with the media, asking for anyone with information to come forward. He emphasized the importance of community cooperation in solving the case. Meanwhile, Detective Torres interviewed Patty Martins, who had discovered Lena's body. Sarah, still in shot, described finding the door unlocked and a horrifying scene in the bedroom. Back inside, the forensic team found traces of DNA on Lena's body and under her fingernails, likely from trying to fight off her attacker. They bagged these samples carefully, knowing they could be crucial in identifying the killer. They also discovered a set of muddy footprints near the back door, suggesting the attacker had entered or exited through there. The initial investigation painted a picture of a violent struggle, but many questions remained. Who could have committed such a brutal act? And why would anyone want to harm Lena, a beloved teacher and mother? Detectives Ramirez and Torres were determined to find answers and bring justice to Lena and her family. The first person the police investigated was Richard Klondine, Lena's husband. Richard was 38 years old and owned a local hardware store called Klondine's Hardware. He was well-liked in the community for his charming personality and his knack for helping customers find exactly what they needed. However, those who knew him well knew he could also be secretive and controlling behind closed doors. When detectives J. Ramirez and Maria Torres arrived at Richard's store on September 13, 2010, he seemed calm but surprised to see them. They informed him about Lena's death and asked him to come to the station for questioning. Richard agreed, though he appeared anxious as he closed up his shop, a popular spot among locals for home improvement supplies like tools and paint from well-known brands like DeWalt and Sherwin-Williams. At the station, the detectives started with basic questions. Where was he on the night of the murder? Richard claimed he had been out of town on business, meeting with suppliers in Phoenix, 100 miles away. He provided the name of the hotel where he stayed and said he had receipts to prove it. He seemed confident, but the detectives knew they needed to verify his alibi. As the questioning continued, Richard's demeanor shifted. He became more defensive and agitated, particularly when asked about his relationship with Lena. He admitted they had been having marital problems, but insisted he loved her and would never harm her. The detectives noted his change in behavior, but needed more concrete evidence to link him to the crime. While Richard was being questioned, other officers checked his alibi. They contacted the hotel in Phoenix and reviewed security footage. Richard's name was indeed on the guest list, but the detectives found something odd. The footage showed Richard leaving the hotel late at night and not returning until the early hours of the morning. This raised suspicions, as it meant he could have traveled back to Tucson during that time. Detectives Ramirez and Torres pressed Richard further, asking about his whereabouts during those hours. Richard grew more agitated and struggled to provide a clear answer. He claimed he had gone for a drive because he couldn't sleep, but his story lacked details and consistency. As they left the station, Detective Ramirez told Torres they needed to follow every lead. They were determined to uncover the truth about Richard and his potential involvement in Lena's tragic death. The second person the police investigated was Laura Lizarda Kandine, Richard's secret second wife. Laura was 44 years old and worked as a hospice nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in Tucson. She was dedicated to her job and known for her kind and caring nature. In her spare time, Laura was an activist, campaigning for public schools to teach students about extraterrestrial civilizations, such as the Vulcans and the Klingons. Detectives J. Ramirez and Maria Torres visited Laura at her home on September 14, 2010.
Laura was visibly shocked and distressed when they told her about Lena's death. She invited them inside and tried to stay calm as they began their questioning. Her son, 16-year-old Mark Lizarda, was also home but stayed in his room, listening anxiously. The detectives asked Laura about her relationship with Richard. She revealed that she had been married to Richard for 2 years, but only recently discovered his marriage to Lena. Laura said she felt betrayed and heartbroken by Richard's deceit. She insisted she had no idea about his double life until a few days ago when she found suspicious documents in his belongings. Laura provided an alibi for the night of Lena's murder. She said she had been working the night shift at St. Mary's Hospital. She gave the detectives the names of her coworkers who could confirm her presence. Detective Torres took detailed notes and assured Laura they would verify her alibi. Despite her distress, Laura cooperated fully with the investigation. She handed over Richard's documents, which she had kept hidden after discovering them. These included financial records, phone bills, and a mysterious report about Richard's activities. The detectives thanked Laura for her help and left to follow up on her information. At St. Mary's Hospital, the detectives spoke with Laura's coworkers, who confirmed she had been at work the entire night. Security footage from the hospital also showed Laura working her shift, which seemed to clear her of any involvement in the murder. However, the detectives knew they couldn't rule out the possibility that she might have known something more about Richard's activities. Laura's cooperation and solid alibi made it difficult for the detectives to consider her a primary suspect, but they were still cautious. They decided to look deeper into Richard's life and any connections he might have had that could shed light on the case. The mysterious report Laura provided hinted at more secrets, possibly related to Richard's business dealings. As they continued their investigation, detectives Ramirez and Torres remained determined to uncover the truth. Laura's revelations added new layers to the case, making it clear that Richard's double life had far-reaching consequences. On September 18, 2010, a week after Lena Kandine's murder, the weather in Tucson, Arizona, was unusually cool and cloudy. Detective Maria Torres was at the police station, reviewing the case files, when she received an urgent call from a local garbage collection worker who had found something suspicious while collecting trash in a neighborhood not far from Lena's home. Detective Torres and her partner, Detective J. Ramirez, quickly headed to the location, a shopping plaza that housed popular stores like Safeway and Walgreens. The bag looked out of place, and the garbage worker, knowing about the recent high-profile murder, thought it might be important. The detectives carefully opened the bag and found several pairs of men's underwear, a dead end. Meanwhile, the mysterious report Laura Lizarda Kandine had given them earlier became even more relevant. It detailed Richard's involvement in money laundering for Mexican cartels, which explained why he was so secretive. The detectives realized that Richard's illegal activities provided a strong motive for him to silence Lena, who might have discovered his crimes. With the new evidence and a clearer picture of Richard's motives, Detectives Ramirez and Torres felt they were closing in on the truth. They knew they needed to interrogate Richard again, this time confronting him with the damning evidence they had uncovered. As they prepared for this critical step, they hoped to finally bring justice for Lena Kandine and her grieving family. As the investigation continued, Detectives J. Ramirez and Maria Torres turned their attention to Mark Lizarda, Laura's 16-year-old son. Mark was a high school student known for his intelligence and strong bond with his mother. His relationship with Richard, his stepfather, had raised some eyebrows in the community due to their unusually close bond. On September 20, 2010, Detectives Ramirez and Torres visited Mark at his school, where they met with him in a private room. Mark was visibly nervous but agreed to talk. The detectives started with general questions about his relationship with his mother and Richard. He spoke fondly of both but admitted that things had been tense since the discovery of Richard's double life. When asked about the night of Lena's murder, Mark claimed he was home playing video games and chatting with friends online. He provided the detectives with the names of his friends, who later confirmed his story. However, there was something about Mark's demeanor that made the detectives suspicious. He seemed too eager to prove his innocence and stumbled over his words when discussing his whereabouts. Despite his alibi, the detectives felt that Marky Mark might know more than he was letting on. They decided to dig deeper into his online activities. They obtained a warrant to search his computer and found that on the night of the murder, Marky Mark had searched for information on how to cover up a crime and how to dispose of evidence. This discovery was alarming and made him a key suspect. The detectives brought Marky Mark back in for further questioning. This time he was more agitated and defensive. He claimed the searches were for a school project, but the detectives didn't believe him. They pressed him harder, and under the pressure, Marky Mark finally broke down and confessed. He admitted he had found out about Richard's bigamy before his mother and feared losing him as a father figure. Marky Mark's confession shocked the detectives. The investigation had revealed the dark side of a seemingly normal family, uncovering secrets that would forever change their lives. On September 22, 2010, Tucson, Arizona police were ready to make an arrest. The sky was clear, and the temperature was climbing towards the typical desert heat. Detectives John Ramirez and Maria Torres had gathered enough evidence to confront Marky Mark Lizarda, the 16-year-old who had confessed to killing Lena Kandine in a fit of rage and desperation. Marky Mark's motive was to maintain Richard Kandine as a father figure in his life. He feared losing Richard after discovering his bigamy and was jealous of the role his first family played in his life. In a moment of panic, he broke into Lena's house on the night of September 11, 2010. Inside, a violent confrontation ensued. Lena fought back, but Marky Mark overpowered her, strangling her with a rope he had brought. The struggle left the bedroom in disarray with a smashed TV and a shattered mirror. The detectives pieced together the timeline using surveillance footage, the gas station receipt, and Marky Mark's own internet searches. They knew they had their murderer. On the morning of September 22, they drove to Marky Mark's home to make the arrest. The neighborhood was just starting to wake up, with children waiting for the school bus and people heading to work. Marky Mark was in the living room when the detectives arrived. His mother, Laura, opened the door, her face pale and strained. The detectives explained that they were there to arrest her son. Laura's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, allowing them inside. Marky Mark didn't resist as the detectives handcuffed him and read in his rights. He looked more resigned than surprised. As the police led Marky Mark to the car, Laura broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Neighbors watched in stunned silence, unable to process the scene unfolding before them. The arrest of a teenager for such a brutal crime was unimaginable. In the days that followed, the police continued to uncover more about Richard's illegal activities. The report Laura had given them detailed his involvement in money laundering for Mexican cartels. This led to Richard's own arrest and conviction, adding another layer of betrayal and deceit to an already tragic story. Marky Mark's arrest and the subsequent revelations about Richard brought a dramatic end to the investigation. The community was left to heal from the wounds inflicted by the crime, knowing that justice had been served, but at a tremendous cost. The trial of Marky Mark Lizarda began on December 1, 2010, in Tucson, Arizona. The courtroom was packed with media, community members, and the grieving family of Lena Kandine. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Michael Jackson, a seasoned lawyer known for his no-nonsense approach and dedication to seeking justice. Jackson, 45, had a reputation for being tough but fair, and he was determined to secure a conviction for Lena's brutal murder. On the other side was the defense attorney, Sarah Jean Miller. At 38, Miller was a rising star in the legal world, known for her sharp mind and ability to connect with juries. She argued that Marky Mark, being only 16, should be tried as a juvenile and highlighted his troubled upbringing and the influence of Richard Kandine as mitigating factors. The prosecution presented a strong case, focusing on the overwhelming evidence against Marky Mark. They detailed his confession, the forensic evidence linking him to the crime scene, and his internet searches on how to commit murder. Jackson argued that Marky Mark's actions were premeditated and that he should be held fully accountable for his heinous crime. The defense, however, painted a picture of a vulnerable teenager manipulated by his stepfather, Richard. They argued that Marky Mark's actions were those of a desperate young man who feared losing the only father figure he had ever known. Miller called several character witnesses, including teachers and friends, who spoke about Marky Mark's generally good behavior and his struggles with his home life. She urged the jury to consider his age and psychological state. After several days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict on December 15, 2010. Marky Mark was found guilty of second-degree murder. The judge, taking into account his age and the circumstances, sentenced him to 25 years in prison. The sentence was seen as a balance between punishment and the possibility of rehabilitation. For Marky Mark, the sentence marked the beginning of a long road ahead. He would serve his time in a juvenile facility until he turned 18, after which he would be transferred to an adult prison. The trial's outcome left a lasting impact on all involved, a sobering reminder of the far-reaching consequences of one tragic night. After the trial, life slowly began to return to some semblance of normalcy for those affected by Lena Klondine's tragic murder. For Lena's family, the pain of her loss remained, but they found solace in each other and in the memories they shared. Dolphin, Lena's 8-month-old son, was the light that kept them going, a constant reminder of her love and legacy. For Richard Klondine, the trial marked the end of his deceitful life. With his arrest and conviction for money laundering, his empire of lies crumbled, leaving behind a trail of destruction. The revelation of his crimes shocked the community and tarnished the reputation of his hardware store, once a staple in the neighborhood. Laura Lizarda Klondine faced the difficult task of rebuilding her life after the betrayal of her husband and the loss of Lena. She threw herself into her work as a nurse, finding solace in helping others. Her activism took on new meaning as she advocated for victims of domestic abuse and campaigned for stronger laws to protect families from similar tragedies. As for Marky Mark Lizarda, his life took a drastically different turn after the trial. Incarcerated in a juvenile facility, he had plenty of time to reflect on his actions and the consequences of his choices. With therapy and counseling, he began to confront his past and work towards rehabilitation. Despite the severity of his crime, there were those who believed in his potential for redemption and hoped that he would one day find a path towards healing and forgiveness. As life moved forward, the memory of Lena Klondine remained a beacon of love and hope in the hearts of those who knew her. Her legacy lived on in the lives she touched and the lessons learned from her tragic death. The murder of Lena Klondine is a tragic reminder of the hidden secrets and dangerous lies that can lurk behind closed doors. In the face of unimaginable loss, her family and friends continue to honor her memory, cherishing the warmth and kindness she brought into their lives. Rachel Calden was a 37-year-old woman who lived in Boulder, Colorado. She was known for her creativity and love of art. Rachel had a degree in fine arts from the University of Colorado. She dreamed of opening her own art gallery someday. She was an outgoing and friendly person who enjoyed hiking and spending time in nature. Rachel was often seen on the trails at Chappaqua Park or strolling through the Pearl Street Mall, enjoying the local shops and cafes. Rachel was a devoted mother of 2 young children, Ethan and Lily. She was deeply involved in their lives, volunteering at their school and helping with their activities. She was part of the PTA at Flaherens Elementary School and often organized art projects for the kids. Her husband, Audrey Lan, worked as a real estate agent, though his business had been struggling due to the housing market crash. In the days before she disappeared, Rachel was busy with her art. She had been working on a series of paintings inspired by the fall colors in the mountains. She loved capturing the vibrant reds, oranges, and yellows of the aspen trees. She had plans to visit the Denver Art Museum to see a new exhibit and was excited about an upcoming art fair where she hoped to display her work. Rachel was also looking forward to Halloween. She had already started making costumes for Ethan and Lily. Ethan wanted to be a cannibal warrior, and Lily was going to be a stripper. Rachel enjoyed the holidays and always went all out with decorations and festivities. On the morning of October 12, 2010, Rachel planned to go for a hike. She loved the crisp fall air and the chance to clear her mind. She left her home around 9 a.m., telling Andre she would be back by noon. When she didn't return, Andre grew worried and reported her missing. Rachel Calden's disappearance would shock the Boulder community. She was a beloved mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Her creativity, kindness, and love for her family left a lasting impression on everyone who knew her. Rachel Calden's body was never found, but her disappearance was reported on October 12, 2010. That morning, Boulder was experiencing clear, crisp fall weather with the temperature hovering around 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Rachel had left her home at 9 a.m. for a hike and was expected to return by noon. When she didn't come back, her husband, Andre Calden, grew increasingly worried. At 1 p.m., Andre called 911. His voice sounded tense and anxious as he spoke to the dispatcher.
My wife, Rachel, went for a hike this morning and she hasn't come back. I can't reach her on her phone. I'm really worried something's happened.
The dispatcher asked for more details, and Audrey provided a description of Rachel and the trail she usually hiked. The call set off a chain of events that mobilized local law enforcement and volunteers. The Boulder Police Department quickly organized a search. Officers, along with search and rescue teams, scoured the hiking trails at Chappaqua Park, where Rachel was known to go. Drones and K-9 units were brought in to aid in the search. Friends, family, and community members also joined the effort, hoping to find any sign of Rachel. As the hours turned into days, the search expanded. Flyers with Rachel's picture were posted around Boulder, and local news stations like ABC 7 Denver covered the story extensively. The community was on high alert, and tips began to pour in. Unfortunately, none led to a breakthrough. The lack of physical evidence at the scene was puzzling. It was as if Rachel had vanished into thin air. The search was hampered by the vast and rugged terrain of the area, making it difficult to cover every inch. Rachel's family and friends were devastated. Her parents pleaded with the public for any information that could help find their daughter. Candlelight vigils were held, and the community rallied around the Calon family, offering support and hope. Despite the extensive search efforts and media coverage, Rachel Calon remained missing. The mysterious circumstances surrounding her disappearance left everyone with more questions than answers. When Rachel Calon was reported missing on October 12, 2010, the Boulder Police Department responded quickly. The clear, crisp fall weather allowed for an extensive search. Detectives Lena Seb and Mark Tucko, known for their thoroughness and dedication, led the investigation. The first place the police checked was Chappaqua Park, where Rachel often hiked. They found her car parked at the trailhead, but inside there were no clues, just a water bottle and her jacket. The scene was eerily normal, with no signs of a struggle or any disturbance. Detective Sev, a meticulous investigator with 15 years of experience, directed the team with precision. She knew every minute was crucial. Detective Tucko, known for his methodical approach, documented every detail meticulously. Together, they interviewed hikers, joggers, and anyone who might have seen Rachel that morning. Despite their efforts, no significant leads emerged. The crime scene was puzzling because there was no crime scene. Rachel had vanished without a trace. This made it difficult for the detectives, as they had no physical evidence to work with. No blood, no signs of a struggle, nothing to indicate what had happened to her. The detectives turned to technology for help. They checked Rachel's phone records and social media accounts. Rachel's last known communication was a text to her sister, Emily, the night before she disappeared. It was a typical message, discussing plans for the weekend. In the following days, the search expanded. Flyers with Rachel's picture were posted all over Colorado. Local news stations like ABC 7 Denver and newspapers like the Boulder Daily Camera covered the story extensively. Tips from the public were followed up on, including rumors she was eaten by a bear, but none led to Rachel. Back at the Calon home, detectives searched for any clues. They interviewed Audrey and the children, trying to piece together Rachel's last moments. Audrey was cooperative but visibly stressed. He provided a detailed account of Rachel's plans and their conversation that morning. Despite the extensive search and thorough investigation, Rachel's whereabouts remained a mystery. Detectives Sev and Tucko were determined to find answers, but were frustrated by the lack of evidence. The case left the Boulder community anxious and desperate for closure. Audrey Calon, Rachel's husband, was the first suspect the police investigated. Audrey, 39, was a real estate agent who had been struggling due to the housing market crash. He was described as charming, but had a short temper and a reputation for being controlling. The couple had been experiencing marital problems, and Rachel recently discovered Audrey's infidelity. On October 13, 2010, Audrey was brought in for questioning at the Boulder Police Department. Detective Lena Sev and Detective Mark Tucko conducted the interrogation. Audrey appeared nervous but cooperative. The detectives pressed further, asking about the morning Rachel disappeared. Audrey recounted their conversation and Rachel's plan to hike at Chautauqua Park. He maintained that he had nothing to do with her disappearance. The detectives knew that financial stress and marital problems could be a motive. They also discovered that Audrey had taken out a large life insurance policy on Rachel, which she was unaware of until shortly before she vanished. This policy, worth a substantial amount, raised further suspicion. Despite Audrey's cooperation, the detectives noted inconsistencies in his story. He seemed evasive when asked about his whereabouts during the time Rachel went missing. They checked his phone records, but nothing conclusive emerged. However, his financial troubles and the secret life insurance policy painted a troubling picture. Outside the police station, reporters were eager for updates. The community was closely following the case, and Andre's potential involvement became a hot topic. Andre continued to deny any wrongdoing. His demeanor during the interrogation was a mix of calmness and irritation. He insisted that he loved Rachel and would never harm her. However, the detectives remained suspicious. Andre had both motive and opportunity, but without concrete evidence, they couldn't make an arrest. Rachel's disappearance left the Boulder community on edge, and Andre's behavior only added to the mystery. The investigation was far from over, and the detectives were determined to uncover the truth. Jessica Castian, Rachel's close friend and a yoga instructor, became the next person of interest. Jessica, 34, was known for her supportive and caring nature. She had been a confidant to Rachel, especially during the tough times in her marriage. However, Jessica was hiding a secret. She was having an affair with Rachel's husband, Andre. On October 15, 2010, Jessica was brought in for questioning at the Boulder Police Department. Detectives Lena Sev and Mark Taco led the interrogation. Jessica seemed tense but cooperative.
Jessica, can you tell us about your relationship with Rachel? We were very close. I was trying to help her through her problems with Andre. Trying to help her marital problems by having sex with her husband?
Okay, fine. It was just for the past few months, and it was a mistake. I regret it deeply.
The detectives pressed Jessica about her relationship with Andre and the days leading up to Rachel's disappearance. Jessica admitted that she and Andre had been seeing each other for a few months. She also knew about Andre's financial troubles and that he had been stealing money from his wife to fund her new yoga studio. The detectives were skeptical of Jessica. She had both a motive and a close connection to Andre, who had a lot to gain from Rachel's disappearance. Her involvement with Andre and the financial support he provided made her a significant suspect. During the interrogation, Jessica maintained her innocence. Her demeanor was a mix of remorse and fear. She expressed guilt over the affair but denied any involvement in Rachel's disappearance. The detectives noted her cooperative attitude but continued to dig deeper into her story. Despite her cooperation, Jessica remained under suspicion. Her affair with Andre and the financial ties between them provided a strong motive. The detectives continued to follow up on every lead, determined to uncover the truth behind Rachel's disappearance. Jessica's life was turned upside down. She faced public scrutiny and the weight of suspicion, all while dealing with her own feelings of guilt and fear. The investigation into Rachel Calden's disappearance was far from over, and every new detail brought them closer to the truth. On October 20, 2010, a week after Rachel Calden's disappearance, new evidence came to light. It was a cloudy, chilly day with temperatures in the mid-40s. A local hiker was walking his dog along a lesser-known trail near Chautauqua Park when he stumbled upon a partially buried item. It was Rachel's phone, covered in dirt and leaves. Greg immediately called 911. The police arrived at the scene within 20 minutes. Detective Lena Sev and Detective Mark Taco, who had been leading the investigation, took charge of the new evidence. The discovery of Rachel's phone was significant. It was the first physical evidence found since her disappearance. The phone was carefully bagged and sent to the forensics lab for analysis. The detectives hoped it would provide clues about Rachel's last moments. At the lab, technicians worked to recover data from the phone. They managed to retrieve text messages, call logs, and GPS data. The last text sent from Rachel's phone was to her sister, Emily, on the night before she disappeared. The phone's GPS data showed Rachel's movements up until the time she went missing. The data indicated she had stopped at a secluded spot off the main trail. Detectives Sev and Takoa returned to the trail with a team to search the area where the phone was found. They conducted a detailed search, hoping to uncover more clues. They found a piece of Rachel's jacket snagged on a bush, which suggested she had been in that area. Local media quickly picked up on the new development. The community's interest in the case surged, and tips began to pour in again. Some people reported seeing suspicious activity in the park on the day Rachel disappeared. With the new evidence in hand, the detectives re-interviewed Andre Calden and Jessica Castian. They asked about the secluded area and if either had been there. Both denied any knowledge of the spot or Rachel's activities there. The discovery of Rachel's phone and jacket piece revitalized the investigation. It gave the detectives new leads to follow and hope that they were getting closer to finding out what happened to Rachel. The Boulder community remained on edge, eager for answers. As the investigation continued, the detectives remained determined to solve the mystery of Rachel Calden's disappearance. Each new piece of evidence brought them one step closer to uncovering the truth. Peter Elio, a private investigator hired by Rachel, became the next person of interest. Peter, 42, was known for being thorough and professional but had a reputation for pushing ethical boundaries. Rachel had hired him to gather evidence of Andre's infidelity. Just before her disappearance, Peter had reported some disturbing findings to Rachel. On October 22, 2010, the Boulder Police Department brought Peter in for questioning. Detectives Olena Sev and Mark Taco conducted the interrogation. Peter appeared confident but slightly nervous as he recounted his work for Rachel. Peter explained that Rachel had hired him to investigate her husband, Andre. She suspected Andre of cheating, and Peter's investigation confirmed those suspicions. He met Rachel on October 10 to give her a report detailing Andre's affairs. Rachel was upset but determined to confront Andre, according to Peter. The detectives pressed Peter about his methods. He confessed to sometimes bending the rules to get information, raising concerns about the reliability of his findings. They discovered that Peter had fabricated some of his reports to take more money from Rachel. Business had been slow for him, and he saw an opportunity to make extra cash. He insisted that he never thought it would harm anyone, and that he never imagined Rachel would go missing. Despite his questionable ethics, Peter maintained his innocence regarding Rachel's disappearance. He stated that he only wanted to help her and had nothing to do with her vanishing. The detectives noted his mix of confidence and anxiety as he provided detailed accounts of his work. His financial motives and fabricated reports, however, made him a significant suspect. Local media, including ABC 7 Denver and the Boulder Daily Camera, closely followed the developments. The community was eager for answers, and Peter's involvement added another layer of complexity to the case. The detectives continued to investigate his actions, hoping to uncover more clues. Peter's life was under intense scrutiny. He faced public suspicion and pressure to prove his innocence. Despite his denials, his unethical practices and financial motives were troubling. The investigation into Rachel Calden's disappearance was still ongoing, and each new lead brought the detectives closer to the truth. The identity of Rachel Calden's murderer remains unresolved, but significant suspicion fell on Andre Calden. Andre, 39, was a real estate agent who had been struggling due to the housing market crash. He was known for being charming but have a short temper and a reputation for being controlling. Financial stress and marital problems, combined with a secret life insurance policy on Rachel, provided a strong motive. On October 25, 2010, a crucial breakthrough came when the detectives discovered the hidden life insurance policy Andre had taken out on Rachel, worth a substantial amount. This policy, activated just weeks before Rachel's disappearance, had been hidden from her. Jessica Castian, feeling guilt-ridden, admitted to knowing about the policy but denied any involvement in the murder. The Boulder Police Department moved quickly to arrest Andre. It was a chilly, overcast day with temperatures in the low 50s. Detectives Olena Sev and Mark Taco led the arrest, arriving at Andre's home early in the morning. The community was tense, with local media closely following the events. Andre was arrested without incident. He appeared surprised but remained composed during the arrest. He was charged with murder, and the news spread rapidly throughout Boulder. Rachel's family expressed relief that a key suspect was in custody but remained anxious for justice. As Andre was taken into custody, the police continued to gather evidence. They focused on the financial motive, including the life insurance policy and the money Andre had stolen from Rachel to fund Jessica's yoga studio. The detectives believed Andre had planned Rachel's disappearance to solve his financial problems and start a new life with Jessica. The case against Andre was strong, but not airtight. The lack of Rachel's body and concrete physical evidence made it challenging. Nevertheless, the detectives were determined to pursue justice. Andre's arrest brought mixed reactions. Some believed he was guilty, while others felt the evidence was circumstantial. Rachel's family and friends were devastated by the entire ordeal. They hoped for a resolution. The Boulder community remained on edge as the legal process unfolded. Andre's behavior and financial troubles painted a compelling picture, but the case was far from closed. The detectives continued their work, searching for more evidence and following every lead. The trial of Andre Calden began on November 15, 2012. The courtroom was packed with local residents, reporters from ABC 7 Denver, and journalists from the Boulder Daily Camera. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Julia Terro, a seasoned prosecutor known for her tough stance on crime. She was 45 years old, sharp and determined to get justice for Rachel. Taro laid out the prosecution's case,
focusing on Andre's financial troubles, his affair with Jessica Castian, and the secret life insurance policy he had taken out on Rachel. She argued that Andre had the motive, opportunity, and financial desperation to plan Rachel's disappearance and murder. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence shows that Andre Calon stood to gain a substantial amount of money from Rachel's death. He was in financial ruin and saw this as his way out, Taro stated firmly in her opening argument. The defense was handled by Hans Stomias, a 50-year-old defense attorney known for his calm demeanor and meticulous approach. Tomias argued that the evidence against Andre was circumstantial. He pointed out the lack of a body and direct physical evidence linking Andre to Rachel's disappearance. Rachel's family watched the trial with heavy hearts. Her sister, Emily, was often seen in the courtroom, holding back tears. The community was divided, with some supporting the prosecution's narrative and others doubting the strength of the evidence. After 2 weeks of intense testimony and careful examination, the jury deliberated. On November 29, 2012, they returned with a verdict. Andre Calon was found not guilty due to insufficient evidence. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, followed by a mix of gasps and murmurs from the audience. Rachel's family was devastated by the verdict. They felt justice had not been served. Emily Taro, the prosecutor, expressed her disappointment but respected the jury's decision. Andre's reaction to the verdict was subdued. He maintained his innocence throughout the trial and expressed relief at the outcome. However, he knew that public suspicion would linger. The verdict had a profound impact on Rachel's family and friends. They struggled with the outcome, feeling that Rachel's memory had not been honored. The community, too, was left with lingering doubts and unresolved questions. The trial's conclusion did little to alleviate the pain and uncertainty surrounding Rachel's disappearance. For many, it was a reminder of the complexities of the justice system and the challenges of finding the truth. The case remained open, and the search for answers continued. After the trial, the lives of those involved in Rachel Calon's case took different paths. Andre Calon, found not guilty, struggled to rebuild his life. The community of Boulder remained suspicious of him. He tried to continue his career in real estate, but faced significant obstacles. His reputation was tarnished, and clients were wary. Andre eventually moved away from Boulder, seeking a fresh start in Canada, his home country. Jessica Castian, the yoga instructor and Andre's secret lover, also faced a challenging aftermath. The revelation of her affair with Andre and her involvement in the scandal affected her professional life. Her yoga studio, which had been funded by money stolen from Rachel, lost many clients. Jessica publicly apologized and tried to distance herself from the controversy. She continued teaching yoga, but on a much smaller scale. Peter Elio, the private investigator, was under scrutiny for his unethical practices. His reputation in the investigative community was damaged beyond repair. He faced legal consequences for falsifying reports and defrauding Rachel. Peter struggled to find work and eventually left the profession. The public and media coverage of his involvement in the case made it difficult for him to regain trust. Rachel's family, particularly her sister Luana, continued to seek answers and justice. Emily became a vocal advocate for missing persons and victims of unsolved crimes. She worked closely with local organizations, raising awareness and pushing for continued investigation into her sister's disappearance. The emotional toll on Rachel's children was immense. They received counseling and support from family and community members. The Boulder community, marked by the tragedy, rallied around Rachel's family. Local events, like the annual Rachel Calon Memorial Hike, were organized to honor her memory and support efforts to find the truth. The case was a reminder of the importance of community solidarity and support. As time passed, the story of Rachel Calon continued to be a significant part of Boulder's history. The hope for justice and answers persisted, driven by the unwavering dedication of Rachel's family, the detectives, and the community. Our story takes place in Fresno, California, during the month of August in 1994. The tranquil suburban neighborhood on Maplewood Drive was about to become the stage for a series of heinous crimes. The first victim, Claire Beeley, was a cheerful and friendly homemaker who lived a seemingly ordinary life. At the age of 50, Claire was known for her love of gardening and baking, her passion for nurturing both her family and her community. Claire, a devoted homemaker, found solace in her love for gardening and baking, activities that brought her immense joy. Alongside her beloved husband, Walter, a convenience store owner, and their 4 children, Carla, Lucky, Bruce, and Jody, Claire led what appeared to everyone to be an idyllic life. Claire's radiant personality and unwavering willingness to lend a helping hand left an indelible mark on her close-knit community. Her neighbors fondly recall the delectable aroma of her freshly baked goods wafting through the neighborhood, enticing everyone to indulge in her culinary delights. Claire's garden, a colorful tapestry of vibrant flowers and meticulously pruned hedges, has been the talk of the town for years, earning her accolades from local gardening enthusiasts. As August unfurled its scorching heat, little did anyone suspect the dark secret that lurked beneath Claire's seemingly idyllic life. The tranquil streets of Fresno were blissfully unaware of the storm that would unleash tragedy within the Beeley household. It was a scorching hot summer day on August 15, 1994, in Fresno, California. The city was buzzing with excitement as news of the upcoming release of the hit movie Forrest Gump spread like wildfire. Little did the residents know that tragedy was about to strike the peaceful Beeley household. Claire's life was abruptly cut short, her vibrant existence snuffed out within the confines of her own home. It was her husband, Walter, who discovered her lifeless body in their modest home. The scene that unfolded before him was nothing short of horrifying. Claire, a loving wife and mother of 4, had been brutally beaten to death in her own home. As the news of Claire's untimely demise spread like wildfire, the community was gripped with fear and confusion. The local news outlets, such as the Fresno Bee and KSE 24, were quick to report on the tragic incident, capturing the attention of residents far and wide. Local authorities swiftly descended upon the scene, their investigation fueled by the urgency to bring justice to this heinous crime. The house, once a sanctuary of love and warmth, now stood as a haunting reminder of the dark reality that had unfolded within its walls. Rumors began to circulate, whispers of a shadowy figure lurking in the shadows, preying on innocent victims. Speculation mounted as the community grappled with the terrifying possibility that a serial killer was among them. Parents held their children a little tighter, and neighbors eyed each other with suspicion. August 1994 was a time of uncertainty, not only for the Beeley family but for the entire Fresno community. The scorching heat seemed to mirror the simmering tension that permeated the streets. People locked their doors and windows, desperate to protect themselves from an invisible menace that haunted their every thought. The Fresno Police Department swiftly responded to the distressing call on that scorching hot August day in 1994. Detectives Dougal Andrews and Joan Garza, known for their dedication to solving heinous crimes, arrived at the crime scene to unravel the perplexing puzzle surrounding Claire Beeley's untimely demise. Upon entering the house, the detectives were greeted by a scene of horror. The air hung heavy with the stench of violence and despair. The once vibrant and welcoming home now bore the marks of a brutal struggle. Bloodstains marred the walls, serving as a chilling testament to the brutality that had unfolded within these walls. As the detectives meticulously combed through the meticulously designed house, they meticulously documented each piece of meticulous evidence, determined to meticulously piece together the meticulous puzzle of Claire's tragic and meticulously violent end. They found a broken vase, meticulously shattered into countless meticulous fragments, its remnants meticulously scattered across the living room floor. The shards of glass glinted in the harsh light, mirroring the shattered lives left behind in the wake of this senseless act. In the kitchen, a half-empty bag of flour lay abandoned on the counter, its contents spilling out onto the pristine tiles. The detectives noted the fingerprints smudged on the bag, a potential clue that could lead them closer to the truth. They carefully collected samples, sealing them in plastic bags and labeling them with meticulous precision. The investigation was not confined to the crime scene alone. Detectives Andrews and Garza reached out to Claire's friends, neighbors, and colleagues, seeking any information that could help them crack the case. They pored over phone records, searching for any suspicious calls made in the days leading up to the tragic event. Every lead, no matter how small, was pursued with unwavering resolve. As the days turned into weeks, the detectives found themselves immersed in a web of interviews, forensic analysis, and tireless pursuit of justice. The city of Fresno held its breath, united in its collective desire to see the perpetrator brought to justice. The next victim in this bone-chilling tale is Henry Reinvoke, a retired teacher who had spent his life imparting knowledge to the young minds of Fresno's public school system. At the age of 65, Henry was known for his warm and compassionate nature. He had dedicated his golden years to volunteering at the local library, sharing his love for books with the community. On the morning of August 17, 1994, tragedy struck once again. Henry's lifeless body was discovered beaten to death in his modest home in Fresno, California. The news of his murder sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community, leaving residents fearful and on edge yet again. Detectives Andrews and Garza of the Fresno PD, the same investigators who had been working tirelessly on Claire Beeley's case, were now faced with another perplexing crime scene. The room where Henry's body was found was in disarray, with furniture overturned and personal belongings scattered across the floor. It was a scene of chaos, a stark contrast to the calm and orderly life Henry was known to lead. As the detectives delved deeper into Henry's life, they discovered a possible motive for his murder. It seemed that Henry had recently come into possession of a valuable antique book, rumored to hold secrets of great historical significance. The book, known as Inner Art of the Egyptian Kings, by Austrian antiquarian Herr Johannes Wintergeist, was said to contain hidden codes and encrypted messages that could unlock a treasure trove of knowledge. The investigators also began to question a former student of Henry's, Peter Bosco, who had shown a keen interest in history during his time in Henry's class. Peter vehemently denied any involvement in the crime, expressing shock and disbelief at the news of his beloved teacher's death. He claimed that he had not seen or spoken to Henry in years, and that he had no knowledge of the mysterious antique book. The detectives continued to work tirelessly, sifting through the evidence and following every lead, determined to bring the perpetrator to justice. With the weight of the community's expectations on their shoulders, they knew that time was of the essence. In the scorching heat of August 20th, 1994, with the mercury reaching 105 degrees, a pivotal moment in the investigation sent shockwaves through the small community of Fresno, California. Judy Sinsalt Jackson, a distressed woman with a voice trembling with urgency, made a call to 911 that would forever alter the course of the case. She bravely declared, "My mother-in-law is a serial killer," and pointed a damning finger at Marjorie Jackson, her own mother-in-law. Despite Judy's insistence, the authorities were skeptical. They dismissed Judy's claims as the rantings of a hysterical woman and a disgruntled daughter-in-law, someone who, like many, was caught in the web of familial tensions and hated her mother-in-law. But little did they know, this call would hold the key to unlocking the true extent of Marjorie's sinister involvement. The city of Fresno, once named by USA Today in 1988 as America's friendliest city, was now gripped by fear and paranoia. Neighbors peered through their curtains, suspicious eyes scanning the streets for any sign of danger. Parents clutched their children a little tighter, afraid to let them out of their sight. In the summer of 1994, Fresno, California was grappling with a series of shocking murders that had left the community in a state of fear and uncertainty. The latest victim in this chilling tale was Jane Fasenra, a dedicated nurse and single mother. At the age of 40, Jane had devoted her life to caring for others at Fresno General Hospital, both at work and at home. Her professionalism and empathy had earned her the respect and admiration of her colleagues and patients alike. On a sweltering August evening, tragedy struck Jane's peaceful home. Her lifeless body was discovered by her 15-year-old son, Vrayler, who had returned from a friend's house to find his mother brutally beaten to death. The scene was a haunting one, with signs of a violent struggle that had taken place in the very place Jane should have felt safe. The police immediately sprang into action, their names becoming familiar to the residents of Fresno, Detectives Dougal Andrews and Joan Garza. With a meticulous approach, they combed through the crime scene, searching for any shred of evidence that could lead them to the perpetrator. The community held its breath, hoping that justice would be served and the killer apprehended. As the investigation unfolded, a possible motive began to emerge. Rachel Santos, a colleague of Jane's at Fresno General Hospital, found herself under the scrutiny of the detectives. The police believed that a personal grudge or a sexual rivalry could have driven Rachel to commit such a heinous act. But as they interrogated her, Rachel's response was one of genuine shock and confusion. She vehemently denied any involvement in Jane's murder, leaving the detectives back at square one.
The media frenzy surrounding the case grew, with local news outlets reporting every development and speculation. The community was on high alert, locking their doors and looking over their shoulders, fearful of who the next victim might be. The name Marjorie Jackson had started to circulate, but without concrete evidence,
The authorities were hesitant to act. As the summer heat continued to bear down on Fresno, the search for answers intensified. The detectives tirelessly pursued every lead, hoping to bring an end to the reign of terror that had gripped their city. They knew that time was of the essence, that another life hung in the balance. The shocking truth behind the heinous crimes that had plagued the quiet town of Fresno, California in August of 1994 finally came to light. The perpetrator, a seemingly innocuous 63-year-old mother-in-law named Marjorie Jackson, was unveiled as the true serial killer. Marjorie's motive for the murders was a deep-seated resentment towards her own son, Abel, whom she blamed for the troubles in her marriage to her alcoholic husband, Kevin. As the investigation unfolded, the police pieced together the puzzle of Marjorie's sinister actions. It was revealed that Marjorie meticulously planned each murder, leaving behind no trace of her involvement. Her calculated moves kept the authorities baffled until a crucial turning point in the case occurred. On August 20th, 1994, a call was made to 911. A woman named Judy Sinsalt Jackson, who happened to be Marjorie's daughter-in-law, bravely stepped forward with a shocking revelation. She declared, "My mother-in-law is a serial killer," and explicitly named Marjorie Jackson as the true perpetrator behind the string of murders that had terrorized the community. However, the police dismissed Judy's claims. They dismissed her as a hysterical woman, blinded by her grievances against her mother-in-law. However, unbeknownst to them, Judy's call would prove to be the turning point in the investigation. As the detectives revisited the evidence, they began to connect the dots. They discovered a pattern that tied Marjorie to each of the victims. The meticulous planning, the calculated timing, and the brutal nature of the murders all pointed towards Marjorie's involvement. It became clear that she had carefully selected her victims, targeting those who had some connection to her own family, as Claire was once Abel's sex partner, Henry was Abel's history teacher, and Abel was the secret father of Rayler, Jane's son. The media frenzy surrounding the case intensified as the truth unfolded. Local newspapers such as the Fresno Bee and television news channels like KSE24 covered the story extensively, capturing the shock and disbelief that reverberated through the community. Residents were left in a state of fear and disbelief, realizing that a serial killer had been operating right under their noses. On the brutally hot day of August 25, 1994, the Fresno Police Department made a breakthrough in their investigation into a string of grisly murders that had plagued the community. The prime suspect, Marjorie Jackson, a seemingly unassuming 63-year-old mother-in-law, was finally apprehended, bringing an end to her reign of terror. The arrest of Marjorie Jackson sent shockwaves through the victims' families and the entire community. For weeks, they had lived in fear, wondering who could be responsible for the brutal deaths of their loved ones. The capture of Marjorie brought a sense of relief, but also a deep sense of betrayal. How could someone so close, someone they had trusted, be capable of such heinous acts? The arrest of Marjorie Jackson was a significant moment in Fresno's history. The media coverage surrounding the case was extensive, with newspapers and television stations reporting on every detail. The community grappled with the realization that evil could lurk in their midst, even within their own families. As Marjorie was led away in handcuffs, her face a mix of surprise and resignation, the community began the process of healing. The scars left by her crimes would forever remain, but with her capture, they could finally start to find closure. The trial that followed the shocking revelations of Marjorie Jackson's crimes was a riveting courtroom drama that captivated California's Central Valley. District Attorney Paula Ingrezza led the prosecution, presenting a compelling case against the seemingly innocuous mother-in-law turned serial killer. Defense attorney Valerie Lindenscope fought tooth and nail to cast doubt on the evidence, but the weight of the facts proved insurmountable. The courtroom was packed with spectators, eager to witness justice being served. Media outlets, including the renowned Fresno Bee and Los Angeles Times, covered the trial, providing updates on the proceedings. The tension in the air was palpable as the victims' families, still reeling from the loss of their loved ones, watched with a mix of anger, grief, and hope for justice. The prosecution meticulously presented the evidence, painting a vivid picture of Marjorie's motive and modus operandi. They called upon expert witnesses, such as renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Jacob Rolshatten, who testified to the brutality of the murders and the consistency of Marjorie's methods. The defense, on the other hand, attempted to poke holes in the prosecution's case, questioning the reliability of certain witnesses and raising doubts about the credibility of the evidence. As the trial unfolded, the courtroom was filled with emotional testimonies from friends, neighbors, and colleagues of the victims. They spoke of the impact the victims had on their lives and the void left by their untimely deaths. The prosecution also presented chilling evidence, including Marjorie's meticulously kept journal, in which she detailed her dark thoughts and plans for each murder. Judge William Bathtub Commerce presided over the trial, ensuring that both sides had a fair opportunity to present their case. He meticulously reviewed the evidence and provided clear instructions to the jury, emphasizing the importance of impartiality and the need to consider only the facts presented in the courtroom. After days of deliberation, the jury rendered their verdict, guilty. The courtroom erupted in applause and tears as the victim's family finally found some closure. Judge Commerce, in delivering the sentence, expressed his disgust at Marjorie's actions, sentencing her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The trial of Marjorie Jackson will forever be remembered as a chilling reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. It serves as a testament to the dedication and perseverance of law enforcement officials, prosecutors, and the justice system as a whole in bringing criminals to justice. In the wake of the trial, the lives of those involved took divergent paths. Judy Sinsall Jackson, the daughter-in-law who inadvertently exposed Marjorie as the serial killer, found solace in the support of her family and friends. She sought therapy to cope with the trauma of discovering the dark secret lurking within her own home. Judy's resilience and determination to rebuild her life earned her admiration from her community and the media, who dubbed her the boy who cried wolf of Fresno. She would go on to become an advocate for victims of domestic violence, using her own experience to shed light on the hidden dangers that can exist within families. Abel Jackson, the son of serial killer Marjorie Jackson and the alleged reason for the murders, struggled to come to terms with the shocking revelation that his own mother had been a murderer. He sought solace in the arms of his wife and children, finding strength in their love and support. Abel, a talented artist, channeled his pain into his work, creating hauntingly beautiful portraits of his mother and the other victims. His artwork was featured in a local gallery. The victims' families, united in their grief, formed a support group to navigate the complex emotions that accompanied their unimaginable loss. They met regularly, sharing stories and memories of their loved ones, finding comfort in the understanding and empathy of those who had experienced similar tragedies. Together, they created a memorial garden in Fresno's Woodward Park, a serene oasis where the names of the victims were etched into a marble monument, forever honoring their memory. As the years passed, the wounds slowly healed, but the scars remained. The victims' families found solace in the knowledge that justice had been served and their loved ones could finally rest in peace. The community, forever changed by the events of that fateful summer in 1994, vowed to never forget the lives lost to Marjorie Jackson's reign of terror. And so, we reached the end of this harrowing tale. In Fresno, California, in August of 1994, the lives of Claire Beeley, Henry Reinvoke, and Jane Fasenra were tragically cut short by the hands of Marjorie Jackson, a mother-in-law turned serial killer. Through meticulous police work and the strength of the victims' families, justice was served. This story serves as a chilling reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places, even within our own families. Daisy Winnow was a pillar of the Torrington community, known for her vibrant personality and infectious smile. Widowed after the passing of her beloved husband, Carl, the previous year, Daisy channeled her energy into running a popular flower shop, aptly named Petals and Blooms. Prior to her entrepreneurial venture, she had dedicated years of her life to shaping young minds as a beloved kindergarten teacher at Torrington Elementary School. Despite her professional success, Daisy's personal life was marked by estrangement from her adult children, who resided in different states. The specifics of their fractured relationship remained a mystery to town residents,
But Daisy held on to a glimmer of hope that one day they would reconcile. She yearned to witness the formation of their future families, an aspiration that fueled her every waking moment. In January of 1982, as the harsh winter gripped Torrington, Daisy's life was abruptly cut short. The news of her murder would send shockwaves through the tight-knit community, where such heinous acts were unheard of. Residents who once felt safe walking the streets at night now clutched their loved ones a little tighter, haunted by the chilling realization that evil could lurk in their midst. It was a frigid morning on January 12, 1982, in Torrington, Connecticut. The temperature had dropped to -4 degrees Fahrenheit overnight, and the town was covered in snow. Most residents were still indoors, trying to stay warm and catch up on the news. But for one young man, the day would be marked by a horrific discovery that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Wally Nathaniel, a 17-year-old high school senior, had a part-time job as a delivery boy for the local newspaper, the Register Citizen. He had been working for the paper since he was 14 and knew the town and its people well. One of his favorite stops was Petals in Bloom's, a quaint shop run by Daisy Winnow, a 67-year-old widow and former kindergarten teacher. Wally admired Daisy for her cheerful demeanor and kindness, and often chatted with her when he dropped off her paper. That morning, Wally arrived at Daisy's Flowers around 9:35 a.m. as usual. He noticed that the shop's door was slightly ajar, which was unusual for Daisy and unusual given the cold weather. Wally knocked on the door, but there was no answer. He pushed the door open and stepped inside, calling out Daisy's name. What he saw next made him scream and drop his papers. Daisy was lying on the floor behind the counter, surrounded by a pool of blood. Her arms were almost cut off, and her face was unrecognizable. She had been brutally murdered, apparently with a large knife or a machete. Wally ran out of the shop, terrified, and called the police from a nearby payphone. The murder of Daisy Winnow would become a mystery that baffled authorities. Who would kill a harmless old lady in such a barbaric way? What was the motive behind this senseless crime? And where was the killer? These questions remained unanswered for months until a surprising twist in the case revealed the shocking truth behind Daisy's death. As soon as Wally Nathaniel reported his grisly discovery, the Torrington Police Department sprang into action. Within minutes, several patrol cars and an ambulance arrived at Petals and Bloom's, followed by a forensic team and 2 homicide detectives. The shop was quickly sealed off with yellow tape, and curious bystanders were kept at a distance. The detectives in charge of the case were Michael Harrison and Sarah Jones-Levy, both seasoned veterans with impressive track records. They had worked together for over 5 years and had solved some of the most challenging cases in the state. They were known for their thoroughness, professionalism, and dedication. But even they were not prepared for the horror that awaited them inside the shop. As they entered, they were greeted by a scene of carnage that made them gasp. Daisy Winnow, the victim, was lying on the floor behind the counter, her body mutilated beyond recognition. Her arms were almost severed from her torso, and her face was slashed beyond repair. She had suffered multiple stab wounds to her chest, abdomen, and neck. Blood was everywhere, staining the floor, the walls, and the flowers. The detectives quickly surveyed the scene, looking for clues. They noticed that the shop was in a state of disarray, as if a struggle had taken place. Flower pots were broken, vases were smashed, and petals were scattered. A trail of bloody footprints led from the counter to the back door, indicating that the killer had fled that way. The back door was unlocked, and there were no signs of forced entry. The detectives also spotted the murder weapon, a large cleaver, lying on a table near the door. It was covered in blood and fingerprints. The detectives wondered how the killer had obtained such a weapon and why he had left it behind. They proceeded to collect evidence, taking photos, measurements, and samples. They also interviewed Wally Nathaniel, the delivery boy who had found the body. He was still shaken by the ordeal and could not provide much information. He said he had arrived at the shop around 9:35 a.m. and had found the door slightly open. He had entered calling out Daisy's name and had seen her body. He had run out screaming and had called the police from a nearby payphone. He said he had not seen anyone else around the shop and that he had no idea who would want to kill Daisy.
The detectives thanked him for his cooperation and told him they would be in touch. They then contacted the coroner, who arrived shortly after. He examined the body and confirmed that Daisy had died from blood loss due to the multiple stab wounds. He estimated that the time of death was between 9 o'clock and 9:30 a.m. based on the body temperature and rigor mortis. He also noted that Daisy had defensive wounds on her hands, suggesting that she had tried to fight off her attacker. The detectives were puzzled by the motive behind the murder. Daisy Winnow was a well-liked and respected member of the community, with no known enemies or problems. The detectives decided to look into Daisy's personal life, hoping to find some clues. They also hoped to find some witnesses who might have seen or heard something suspicious around the shop that morning. They knew they had a tough case ahead of them, and that time was of the essence. They had to catch the killer before he struck again. The first person that detectives Harrison and Jones-Levy wanted to talk to was Nick Hasselby, Daisy's boyfriend. Nick was a 41-year-old plumber who had met Daisy 6 months ago when he had fixed a leak in her shop. They had hit it off and had started dating soon after. Nick was a handsome and charming man who had a reputation for being a ladies' man. He had been married twice before and had several girlfriends in between. He was also 26 years younger than Daisy, which raised some eyebrows in the town. The detectives wondered if Nick had any motive to kill Daisy. Could he have been after her money or her shop? Could he have been jealous of her relationship with her children or someone else? Could he have been involved in some shady business or had a secret enemy? They decided to find out. They tracked down Nick at his apartment, where he lived alone. They knocked on the door and Nick opened it. He looked surprised to see them and asked them what they wanted. They told him they were investigating Daisy's murder and asked him if he could come with them to the station for some questions. Nick agreed and followed them to their car. At the station, they took Nick to an interrogation room where they asked him about his relationship with Daisy. Nick said he loved Daisy and that they were very happy together. He said he had no idea who would want to kill her or why. He said he had nothing to do with her death and that he was heartbroken by the news. He said he had last seen her the night before, when they had dinner at a local Italian restaurant, and then went back to her place. He said he had left around 11 o'clock p.m. and had gone straight home. He said he had an alibi, his neighbor, who had seen him arrive and leave his apartment. The detectives asked him if he had any problems with Daisy or anyone else. Nick said he had not, and that he got along well with everyone. He said he had no enemies, no debts, no secrets. He said he had a good job and a good life. He said he had nothing to hide. The detectives were not convinced. They pressed him harder, trying to find any inconsistencies or contradictions in his story. They asked him about his past marriages, his previous girlfriends, his financial situation, his hobbies, his friends. They asked him if he had ever been violent or had a criminal record. They asked him if he had ever cheated on Daisy or had any other lovers. They asked him if he had ever argued with Daisy or had any disagreements. They asked him if he knew anyone who might have a grudge against him or Daisy. Nick denied everything. He said he was faithful, honest, and peaceful. He said he had never hurt anyone or done anything wrong. He said he had no enemies, no rivals, no conflicts. He said he only loved Daisy and wanted to be with her. He said he was innocent and begged them to believe him. The detectives were not sure what to think. Nick seemed sincere, but also suspicious. His story was consistent, but also convenient. His alibi was solid, but also shaky. His motive was unclear, but also possible. They decided to keep him under surveillance and to check his background. They also decided to look for other suspects who might have a stronger connection to the crime. While Mick Hasselby remained a prime suspect, the detectives did not rule out other possibilities. They decided to look into the last person who had seen Daisy alive according to the shop's records. That person was Danny Waters, a 24-year-old man who had bought a bouquet of roses from Daisy at 9:15 a.m., just 20 minutes before her body was found. Danny Waters was an odd and lonely figure in the town. He lived with his mother, Carla, who ran a car wash on the outskirts of Torrington. He had no job, no friends, no hobbies. He rarely left his house except to run errands for his mother or to visit Daisy's shop. He was also illiterate, having never attended school or learned to read or write. The detectives were curious about Danny's relationship with Daisy. Why did he buy roses from her that morning? Who were they for? What did they talk about? Did he notice anything unusual or suspicious? They decided to pay him a visit. They drove to the car wash, where they found Carla Waters working. She was a 49-year-old woman with a stern and weary face. She greeted them coldly and asked them what they wanted. They told her they were investigating Daisy's murder and that they wanted to talk to Danny. Carla said Danny was not home and that he had nothing to do with Daisy's death. She said Danny was a good boy who never hurt anyone. She said Daisy was a nice lady who was kind to Danny. She said they had no reason to kill her. The detectives asked Carla if they could search her house, and she reluctantly agreed. They followed her to a small and shabby house next to the car wash. They entered and were struck by the smell of dirt and decay. They searched the house, looking for any clues or evidence. They found nothing of interest except for a cardboard box in the attic, where Danny slept. Inside the box, they found a pile of books, magazines, and newspapers. They were puzzled by this, since Danny was illiterate. They asked Carla about it, and she said Danny liked to look at the pictures and that he collected them as a hobby. The detectives were not satisfied with this explanation. They took some of the books and magazines with them and left. They took them to the station, where they examined them more closely. They were shocked by what they found. The books and magazines were all about flowers, gardening, and nature. They were all marked with notes written in a childish and clumsy handwriting. The notes were simple words such as rose, sun, love. The detectives realized that these were not just pictures, but lessons. Someone had been teaching Danny to read. They wondered who that someone was, and they had a hunch. They checked the dates and titles of the books and magazines and compared them with Daisy's shop's records. They found a match. Every time Danny had bought flowers from Daisy, he had also received a book or a magazine from her. The detectives had discovered a surprising connection. Daisy, moved by Danny's illiteracy, had been secretly tutoring him in her spare time. She had been giving him books and magazines, along with notes and instructions, to help him learn to read. She had been doing this for months without anyone's knowledge. The detectives were amazed by this revelation. They wondered what Daisy's motive was and what Danny's feelings were. They wondered if this was a platonic or romantic relationship and how Carla felt about it. They wondered if this had anything to do with Daisy's murder. They decided to talk to Danny again and to find out more. The case seemed to hit a dead end as the detectives ran out of leads and suspects. Nick Hasselby and Danny Waters had solid alibis, and no other person had a clear motive or opportunity to kill Daisy. The detectives were frustrated and desperate as the media and the public demanded answers. Then, a ray of hope. A forensic technician, working on the fingerprint analysis, found a match. A single print left on the cleaver that was used as the murder weapon belonged to none other than Carla Waters, Danny's mother. The detectives were stunned by this discovery. Carla Waters had not been on their radar as she had no apparent connection to Daisy, except for being Danny's mother. She had also cooperated with the police and had allowed them to search her house. She had seemed indifferent rather than suspicious. The detectives wondered what Carla's motive was and how and why she had pulled off the crime. They decided to confront her and to get some answers. The fingerprint match was a game changer for the detectives. They had a new suspect and a new lead. They decided to dig deeper into Carla Waters' background and to find out what she was hiding. Carla Waters was a 49-year-old woman who had lived in Torrington all her life. She had never married and had raised Danny on her own. She ran a car wash on the edge of town, which she had inherited from her father. She was a quiet and reserved person who kept to herself and rarely socialized. She was also fiercely protective of Danny, who she considered her only reason for living. The detectives also learned that Carla had a troubled past, marked by trauma and abuse. She had become pregnant with Danny at 15. She had never told anyone about it and had given birth to Danny in secret. Carla had developed a twisted form of maternal obsession, bordering on abuse. She had isolated Danny from the world and had denied him any education, socialization, or normalcy. She had forced him to eat only raw barley like a horse and had made him sleep naked in a cardboard box in the attic. She had controlled every aspect of his life and had convinced him that she was the only person who loved him and cared for him. The detectives also learned that Carla had a paranoid and delusional personality fueled by her guilt and fear. She had believed that Danny and Daisy were having sex and that they were plotting to kill her. She had spied on them and had seen them exchanging books and notes. She had misinterpreted their innocent gestures as signs of betrayal and conspiracy. She had become consumed by an irrational jealousy and had decided to take matters into her own hands. The detectives had enough evidence to arrest Carla and to confront her with the truth. They went to her house, where they found her sitting on the couch, watching a replay of Donahue. She looked calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. She greeted them politely and asked them what they wanted. They told her they had a warrant for her arrest and that they knew she had killed Daisy. They showed her the fingerprint match and the books and notes they had found in Danny's box. Carla's demeanor changed instantly. She became agitated and defensive and denied everything. She said they had no proof and that they were lying. She said she had nothing to do with Daisy's death and that she loved Danny more than anything. She said Danny and Daisy were the ones who had killed her and that they were trying to frame her. She said they were evil and that she deserved to die. The detectives were shocked by Carla's reaction. They realized that she was mentally unstable and that she had no remorse or regret. They handcuffed her and took her to their car. They also called Danny and told him what had happened. Danny was speechless and could not believe that his mother was the killer. He said he was sorry for Daisy and that he had no idea what his mother had done. The detectives had solved the case, but they had also uncovered a dark and tragic story. A story of a mother's love gone wrong and a son's life ruined. A story of a woman's madness and a town's horror. A story of a flower's beauty and a murder's brutality. The trial of Carla Waters began on March 15, 1982 at the Litchfield County Courthouse. The judge presiding over the case was William Balls, a respected and experienced jurist. The prosecutor was Emily Carter, a young and ambitious assistant district attorney. The defense attorney was Thomas Hines, a seasoned and skillful public defender. The prosecution's case was built on the fingerprint evidence, the books and notes found in Danny's box, and the testimony of Danny and the detectives. Emily Carter portrayed Carla as a cold-blooded and calculating killer who had planned and executed the murder of Daisy Winnow out of a twisted sense of control over her son. She argued that Carla had acted with premeditation and malice, and that she deserved the maximum penalty, life imprisonment without parole. The defense's case was based on Carla's mental state, her abusive past, and her lack of criminal record. Thomas Hines argued that Carla was a mentally ill and traumatized woman who had suffered from a psychotic break and had acted under the influence of a delusion. He pleaded for the jury's mercy and compassion and asked them to consider a lesser charge, manslaughter. The trial lasted for 2 weeks and was filled with dramatic and emotional moments. Daisy's friends and colleagues testified about her kindness and generosity and expressed their grief and outrage. Danny testified about his mother's abuse and his relationship with Daisy and broke down in tears. Carla testified in her own defense and maintained her innocence and her delusion and showed no remorse or empathy. The jury, composed of 6 men and 6 women, deliberated for 3 days. They reviewed the evidence, the testimonies, and the arguments. They weighed the facts, the emotions, and the law. They debated, argued, and voted. Finally, they reached a unanimous verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict was announced on March 29, 1982 at 4:15 p.m. The courtroom was silent as the jury foreman read the verdict. Then a wave of reactions swept the room. Some gasped, some sobbed, some cheered. Carla Waters showed no reaction and remained expressionless. Judge Balls thanked the jury for their service and pronounced the sentence: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He ordered Carla to be taken away and adjourned the court. For Daisy's family, the verdict was a bittersweet closure. They finally learned the truth about their mother's final days and saw justice done. But they also felt the pain of their estrangement and the loss of their chance to reconcile. They hugged each other and vowed to stay in touch. The trial of Carla Waters was over, but the aftermath of her crime was not. The lives of those affected by her actions were forever changed, and they had to find a way to move on. Danny Waters, the son of the killer and the friend of the victim, faced the most challenges. He had been freed from his mother's tyranny, but he had also lost the only person who had shown him kindness and compassion. He had to deal with the trauma of his past and the uncertainty of his future. He had to learn to read, to work, to live. He did not have to do it alone, though. He received extensive therapy and support from the community, who rallied around him and offered him help and hope. He also received a generous donation from Daisy's family, who forgave him and wished him well. He eventually found a job at a local bookstore, where he developed a passion for reading and learning. He also found love and married a young woman who accepted him for who he was. He had a son, whom he named Carl after Daisy's late husband. He never forgot Daisy and kept a picture of her in his wallet. He visited her grave every year and thanked her for changing his life. Detectives Harrison and Jones Levy, the heroes of the case, also faced some challenges. They had witnessed one of the most tragic and twisted stories of human nature. They had seen the best and the worst of humanity, and they had been affected by it. They continued their careers, but they also sought counseling and support. They vowed to bring justice to victims and closure to their families, but they also learned to cope with their own emotions and stress. They remained partners and became friends. The town of Torrington, the scene of the crime, also faced some challenges. It had been shaken by the events of that winter and had lost some of its innocence and security. It had to deal with the stigma and the sorrow, and to rebuild its reputation and its spirit. It did not have to do it alone, though. It received support and sympathy from neighboring towns and cities, who offered their condolences and assistance. It also received recognition and praise from the state and the nation, who applauded its resilience and courage. It gradually healed and regained its peace and harmony. Daisy's flower shop, now owned by a young couple who had admired her work, remained a landmark, a silent reminder of the vibrant life cut short and the enduring complexities of the human condition. The case of Daisy Winnow serves as a chilling reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and the darkness within the human heart can manifest in unexpected forms. It is a story of love, loss, twisted obsession, and the lengths some are willing to go to in the name of a warped perception of control. It is a story that leaves a lasting impact, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of tragedy, an enduring search for truth and justice. Jared Mitchell was a 52-year-old man who lived in Greensboro, North Carolina. He was a senior executive at a large company, known for his charm and success in the business world. Jared had worked hard to climb the corporate ladder and enjoyed the perks of his high-paying job. He was often seen in nice suits and driving his luxury car around town. Jared was sociable and loved attending fancy events and parties. However, people close to him knew he had a dark side. He was narcissistic and had a long history of cheating on his wife, Amanda. Amanda Mitchell, 50, was a former high school chemistry teacher. She was kind-hearted and dedicated to her students. Amanda had a passion for science and loved sharing her knowledge with young minds. She was well-liked by her colleagues and students alike. Amanda and Jared had been married for over 20 years, and they had faced many ups and downs together. Amanda was known for her resilience, always pushing through tough times with a smile on her face. In September 2018, Amanda's world was turned upside down when she was diagnosed with terminal esophageal cancer. The news was devastating, but Amanda tried to stay strong. She continued to live her life as normally as possible, spending time with friends and family. However, just days after her diagnosis, Jared asked for a divorce. He had long been seeing a much younger woman, Jenna Parker Breen, in secret. Jenna was an aspiring influencer. Known for her posts on Instagram and YouTube, she often shared tips on how to snag wealthy older men, boasting about her desire for a glamorous lifestyle. Amanda was heartbroken by Jared's betrayal. She had always been supportive of him, even when he made mistakes. Now, in her time of greatest need, he had abandoned her. Despite her illness, Amanda continued to push through, supported by her close friend and colleague, Ryan Hart. Ryan often helped Amanda with daily tasks and provided a shoulder to cry on. In the days leading up to Jared's death, he was excited about his new life with Jenna.
He was seen around Greensboro, dining at upscale restaurants and shopping at places like Nordstrom and Macy's. Jared seemed carefree and happy, looking forward to a future with his young girlfriend. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, and Jared was unaware of the deadly consequences that were about to unfold. On a late night in early September 2018, Jared Mitchell's lifeless body was discovered in his Greensboro home. It was around 10:30 p.m. when Brian Hart, a close friend and colleague of Amanda Mitchell, knocked on Jared's door. Amanda, worried about Jared, had asked Brian to check on him. Brian was always supportive, especially during Amanda's tough times, and he agreed to help. When Brian arrived at Jared's house, he noticed the lights were still on. He knocked several times, but there was no answer. Growing concerned, Brian used the spare key Amanda had given him. As he opened the door, he was met with an eerie silence. The house was neat, with everything in its place, but something felt off. Brian called out Jared's name, but got no response. He walked into the living room and saw Jared sitting in his favorite armchair, a glass of whiskey on the table beside him. At first glance, it looked like Jared had fallen asleep, but as Brian got closer, he realized something was terribly wrong. Jared's skin was pale, and his body was completely still. Panic set in as Brian checked for a pulse, but found none. He quickly called 911, his hands shaking. The dispatcher guided him through CPR, but it was clear that Jared was already gone. Brian was in shock, unable to believe what he was seeing. He had always disliked Jared for how he treated Amanda, but he never wished for this. The first responders arrived within minutes. EMTs confirmed Jared was dead and called the police. Neighbors gathered outside, whispering about what could have happened. News spread quickly through the community, and soon local media outlets, including WFMY News 2, reported on the mysterious death of Jared Mitchell. Everyone in Greensboro was talking about it, speculating on the cause of his sudden demise. As the investigation continued, the police knew they had a complex case on their hands. The calm and neat crime scene contrasted with the shocking nature of Jared's death, leaving everyone wondering who could have wanted him dead and why. When the police arrived at Jared Mitchell's house on that September night in 2018, they quickly took control of the situation. Detective Lisa Harper led the team. Known for her experience and sharp mind, she wasted no time in starting the investigation. The house was quiet and tidy, with no signs of a struggle. The living room, where Jared's body was found, looked normal at first glance. Jared was seated in his favorite armchair with a glass of whiskey on the table next to him. The scene seemed peaceful, but Detective Harper knew better. She ordered her team to gather evidence and take photos of everything. The toxicology test on the whiskey revealed the cause of death, rat poison. Jared had been poisoned, and the glass of whiskey was the delivery method. This discovery turned the investigation into a homicide case. Detective Harper and her team focused on the details, looking for any clues that might point to the killer. They dusted for fingerprints on the glass and other surfaces around the room. They collected samples from the whiskey bottle and checked for any signs of tampering. The method of poisoning suggested that the killer knew Jared's habits well, as the poison was mixed into his favorite drink. Detective Harper also interviewed neighbors and anyone who had seen Jared recently. Many recalled seeing him around town, dining at local restaurants like the Green Valley Grill and shopping at Friendly Center. Some remembered seeing him with his new girlfriend, Jenna Parker Breen, who was much younger and very active on social media. The police also looked into Jared's recent divorce from Amanda Mitchell. They knew that such personal turmoil could be a motive for murder. Amanda, a former chemistry teacher, had the knowledge to carry out such a crime, but her terminal illness and devastated state made her an unlikely suspect at first glance. As they dug deeper, the police discovered that Jared had been involved in several affairs, creating a long list of potential enemies. His new relationship with Jenna, his sudden divorce from Amanda, and his overall lifestyle painted a picture of a man with many secrets and enemies. The police used advanced methods to analyze the crime scene, including forensic tests and detailed interviews. They mapped out Jared's last days, trying to identify who had the opportunity and motive to poison him. The investigation was thorough, with Detective Harper leading the charge, determined to uncover the truth behind Jared Mitchell's death. The media, including local stations like Fox 8, followed the story closely. Greensboro residents were eager for answers, speculating on who could have committed such a cold-blooded act. As the police worked tirelessly, the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to come together,
pointing them towards the person responsible for Jared Mitchell's murder. The first suspect in Jared Mitchell's murder was his ex-wife, Amanda Mitchell. Amanda was 50 years old and had recently been diagnosed with terminal esophageal cancer. She was a former high school chemistry teacher, known for her kindness and dedication. Her students loved her, and her colleagues respected her. Despite her illness, Amanda remained strong and resilient. Having been kicked out of the home she shared with Jared, she lived in a modest home in Greensboro, not far from where she used to teach. Amanda was devastated when Jared divorced her just days after a diagnosis. They had been married for over 20 years, and she had always supported him, even through his infidelities. Jared's betrayal cut deep, especially when he left her for a much younger woman, Jenna Parker Breen, when she needed him the most. Amanda's friends and family described her as heartbroken but trying to make the most of the time she had left. When the police questioned Amanda, she was calm and cooperative, though her voice was hoarse due to her cancer. Detective Lisa Harper, who led the investigation, noted Amanda's composed demeanor. Amanda explained that she had been at home, resting due to her illness, on the night of Jared's death. She expressed her sorrow over Jared's passing, despite their recent split. Amanda's motive for murder seemed clear. She had every reason to be angry and hurt by Jared's actions. However, her illness made it hard to believe she had the strength or energy to carry out such a plan. The police were also aware that Amanda's background in chemistry gave her the knowledge to use poison. Detective Harper and her team dug deeper into Amanda's life. They interviewed her friends, neighbors, and colleagues. Many described Amanda as a loving and caring person, devoted to her family and students. They couldn't imagine her committing such a crime, even with her broken heart. The police also looked into Amanda's medical records, confirming her terminal diagnosis. This evidence seemed to support her claim of being too weak to commit murder. However, the police couldn't ignore the possibility that Amanda might have used her knowledge and connections to get someone else to do the dirty work for her. The community was shocked by the turn of events, with many sympathizing with Amanda's plight. People speculated on whether she could have been driven to such an act out of sheer desperation and pain. As the investigation continued, Detective Harper kept Amanda on the suspect list, but knew they needed more evidence to either clear her or prove her guilt. The search for the truth behind Jared Mitchell's murder was far from over, and the police were determined to uncover all the facts. The second suspect in Jared Mitchell's murder was Jenna Parker Breen, Jared's new girlfriend. Jenna was 24 years old and an aspiring influencer. She had a large following on Instagram and YouTube, where she shared tips on fashion, beauty, and dating wealthy older men. Jenna was known for her ambitious and opportunistic nature, often flaunting her glamorous lifestyle online. She had moved to Greensboro recently to be with Jared, and their relationship was the talk of the town. Jenna and Jared had met at a charity event in August 2018. Jared was immediately taken by her charm and good looks, and they quickly began a relationship. Jenna saw Jared as a ticket to a luxurious life and didn't hesitate to leave her old life behind. Their relationship progressed quickly, with Jared divorcing Amanda to be with Jenna. When the police questioned Jenna, she appeared nervous and defensive. She insisted she had no reason to harm Jared, claiming they were planning their future together. Detective Lisa Harper, leading the investigation, noticed Jenna's agitation and decided to dig deeper into her background. The police found that Jenna had a history of dating older wealthy men. Her social media was filled with photos of fancy dinners at restaurants like Printworks Bistro and shopping sprees at Friendly Center. Jenna had often spoken about the importance of financial security and had a large following of young women who admired her lifestyle. Jenna's possible motive for murder was financial gain. Jared had a significant life insurance policy, and with his sudden death, Jenna stood to receive a large sum of money. This raised suspicions about whether she could have killed Jared for his wealth. However, Jenna denied any involvement, stating she loved Jared and was devastated by his death. The police also looked into Jenna's recent activities. They interviewed her friends and followers, trying to piece together her whereabouts on the night of Jared's murder. Some of Jenna's friends mentioned that she had been talking about moving to a bigger city, like Charlotte or Atlanta, which fueled the police's suspicions further. Her followers were shocked, with many expressing disbelief that Jenna could be involved in such a crime. Jenna's image as a glamorous influencer took a hit as people began to question her true motives. Despite Jenna's denials, the police couldn't ignore the possibility that she had killed Jared for his money. Detective Harper knew they needed concrete evidence to either clear Jenna or prove her guilt.
The investigation continued, with the police scrutinizing every detail of Jenna's life and relationship with Jared, determined to uncover the truth. The third suspect in Jared Mitchell's murder was Brian Hart, Amanda's colleague and close friend. Brian was 35 years old and worked as a high school chemistry teacher, just like Amanda. He was known for his compassion and support, especially towards Amanda during her illness. Brian often helped Amanda with daily tasks and was vocal about his disdain for Jared's actions, making him a potential suspect. Brian and Amanda had worked together for several years and had become close friends. When Amanda was diagnosed with terminal esophageal cancer, Brian was there for her, providing both emotional and practical support. Many people saw Brian as a kind and caring individual who went out of his way to help others. However, his open criticism of Jared's behavior raised questions about his involvement in the murder. When the police interrogated Brian, he was calm and cooperative. He explained that he had been at home grading papers on the night of Jared's death. Detective Lisa Harper, who led the investigation, noted Brian's composed demeanor but decided to delve deeper into his relationship with Amanda and Jared. The police discovered that Jared had hired Brian to spy on Amanda and steal what little money was left to her after the divorce. This revelation painted a different picture of Brian. Although he had seemed supportive, his actions suggested a more complicated motive. Brian had financial problems and could have seen an opportunity in Jared's death to benefit himself or to help Amanda. Detective Harper and her team examined Brian's financial records and found that he had been struggling with debt. This financial stress, combined with his loyalty to Amanda, made Brian a strong suspect. They also looked into his background, checking if he had the knowledge and means to poison Jared. As a chemistry teacher, Brian had access to various chemicals, including rat poison. The police interviewed Brian's colleagues and neighbors. Many described him as a dedicated teacher and a good friend, but some mentioned his growing frustration with his financial situation. This frustration could have pushed him to take drastic measures. The community was shocked to learn that someone so close to Amanda could be a suspect. People began to question whether Brian's support for Amanda was genuine, or if it was part of a larger scheme. Despite Brian's calm exterior, the police couldn't ignore the evidence pointing towards his possible involvement. Detective Harper knew that they needed more concrete proof to either clear Brian or charge him with the crime. The investigation continued, with the police scrutinizing every aspect of Brian's life and his interactions with both Amanda and Jared, determined to uncover the truth behind Jared Mitchell's murder. On September 15, 2018, a week after Jared Mitchell's death, new evidence emerged that changed the course of the investigation. It was a sunny afternoon around 2 p.m. when Detective Lisa Harper received a call from a local resident who lived in the same neighborhood as Jared and often walked her dog in the area. That day, she had found the suspicious item in the bushes near Jenna Parker Breen's apartment complex. She handed over a small, empty, unlabeled bottle to the police. Detective Harper immediately recognized the significance of this discovery. The bottle was carefully bagged as evidence and sent to the lab for analysis. The police hoped to find fingerprints or any other trace that could link the bottle to the killer. The results came back quickly. Fingerprints on the bottle matched those of Amanda Mitchell, Jared's ex-wife. This was a shocking turn of events, as Amanda had previously been considered too weak to carry out the murder herself. Detective Harper and her team re-examined Amanda's alibi and movements on the night of the murder. The police also analyzed surveillance footage from the area around Jenna's apartment. They found footage of Amanda visiting the complex a few days before Jared's death. This raised further questions about Amanda's involvement and whether she had tried to frame Jenna for the murder. Local news stations reported on the new developments. The community was buzzing with theories and speculation. Many were shocked that Amanda, who seemed so kind and loving, could be involved in such a heinous crime. Others believed it was a desperate act driven by her terminal illness and Jared's betrayal. Detective Harper focused on interviewing Amanda again, this time with the new evidence in hand. Amanda's demeanor changed. She seemed more nervous and less composed. She struggled to explain why her fingerprints were on the rat poison bottle. Amanda admitted to visiting Jenna's apartment complex, but claimed it was to confront Jenna about her relationship with Jared, not to plant evidence. The police also discovered that Amanda had researched poisons extensively in the months leading up to Jared's death. Her background as a chemistry teacher gave her the knowledge needed to plan and execute the poisoning. Detective Harper began to piece together a scenario where Amanda, driven by anger and a sense of betrayal, had orchestrated the murder to make it look like Jenna was the culprit. This new evidence put Amanda back in the spotlight as the primary suspect. The police intensified their investigation, gathering more details and building a stronger case against her. The discovery of the rat poison bottle near Jenna's apartment was the breakthrough they needed to move closer to solving the case and bringing Jared Mitchell's killer to justice. On September 20, 2018, after days of intense investigation and new evidence pointing toward Amanda Mitchell, the police made a decisive move. Detective Lisa Harper and her team had gathered enough information to identify Amanda as the primary suspect in Jared Mitchell's murder. They had found her fingerprints on the rat poison bottle and confirmed that she had visited Jenna Parker Breen's apartment complex just days before Jared's death. Amanda, who was battling the end stages of terminal esophageal cancer, was in a hospital in Greensboro. Despite her deteriorating health, the police needed to arrest her to charge her with Jared's murder. Detective Harper and her team arrived at the hospital around 11 a.m. with a warrant for Amanda's arrest. Amanda was in a private room, hooked up to various medical equipment. Her condition was critical, and her family was by her side. When the police entered the room, Amanda looked up with a mix of shock and resignation. Detective Harper carefully informed Amanda of her arrest and the charges against her. Amanda, frail and weak, did not resist. She understood the gravity of the situation and knew there was little she could do. As the police read Amanda her rights, her family members were visibly upset. They had been supporting her through her illness and were devastated to learn of the charges. Amanda's once calm demeanor now showed a hint of defeat and sadness. Despite her illness, Amanda was taken into custody, with the police making arrangements for her to be transported to the local jail for booking. The news of Amanda's arrest spread quickly. Local media outlets covered the dramatic turn of events live, showing footage of the police arriving at the hospital and Amanda being wheeled out in a wheelchair. The community was shocked to see Amanda, who had been seen as a victim of betrayal, now facing serious charges. Amanda's arrest was a significant moment in the investigation. The police believed that Amanda had carefully planned Jared's murder out of anger and a desire for revenge. Her knowledge of poisons from her chemistry background, combined with her recent actions, painted a clear picture of her involvement in the crime. The arrest marked the beginning of a new chapter in the case. With Amanda in custody, the focus shifted to the legal process and the trial that would determine her guilt or innocence. The community, still reeling from the shocking developments, awaited the next steps in the case with bated breath. Amanda Mitchell's trial for the murder of Jared Mitchell began in early October 2018, just weeks after her arrest. The trial was held at the Guilford County Courthouse in Greensboro, North Carolina. The courtroom was packed with media who were eager to cover the high-profile case. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Hannah Foster, argued that Amanda had meticulously planned Jared's murder out of anger and a desire for revenge. Foster presented evidence showing Amanda's fingerprints on the rat poison bottle and her visits to Jenna Parker Breen's apartment complex. She highlighted Amanda's knowledge of poisons from her time as a chemistry teacher and her motive rooted in betrayal and suffering. Foster's arguments painted a clear picture of Amanda as the mastermind behind the crime. Amanda's defense attorney, Robert King Clark, argued that Amanda's terminal illness had left her too weak to commit the murder. He suggested that someone else, possibly Jenna or Brian Hart, could have been responsible. King Clark claimed that Amanda's deteriorating health made it impossible for her to plan and execute such a crime. He tried to cast doubt on the evidence presented by the prosecution, but his arguments did little to sway the jury. The trial was emotional for everyone involved. Jared's family, including his children and close relatives, attended each day, visibly distressed by the proceedings. They had been waiting for justice for Jared and hoped for a verdict that would bring them some closure. Tragically, just 3 days before the verdict was to be announced, Amanda Mitchell passed away in the hospital from her terminal cancer. Her death was a somber end to a complicated and painful case. Despite her passing, the court decided to proceed with a posthumous verdict. The judge ruled that Amanda was guilty of Jared's murder based on the overwhelming evidence presented during the trial. The verdict was announced on October 12, 2018, and was covered extensively by local media. The community was divided in their reactions. Some felt that the posthumous conviction was a necessary step to ensure justice for Jared, while others felt conflicted about convicting someone who had already died. Amanda's death did not bring the closure that many had hoped for, but it marked the end of a tragic chapter for Jared's family. They could finally start to move on, knowing that the legal system had addressed the crime. The case left a lasting impact on the Greensboro community, highlighting the complex nature of justice and the human emotions involved in such a heart-wrenching story. After Amanda Mitchell's death and her posthumous conviction for the murder of Jared Mitchell, the lives of those involved continued to be affected by the case. Jenna Parker Breen, who had initially been a suspect in the case, saw her life turn back to a degree of normalcy after Amanda's arrest and conviction. The trial had left a mark on her reputation, with her followers and the public scrutinizing her every move. Jenna took a step back from her influencer career, focusing on rebuilding her life away from the public eye. She moved to a different city, seeking a fresh start and attempting to distance herself from the media attention that had followed the trial. Brian Hart, the third suspect in the case, was cleared of any wrongdoing once Amanda was convicted. However, the ordeal had taken a toll on him as well. His professional and personal life were affected by the intense scrutiny and the revelation of his involvement in spying on Amanda. He continued to work as a high school chemistry teacher but struggled with the damage to his reputation. The community's perception of him remained mixed, with some viewing him as a supportive friend and others questioning his motives. Detective Lisa Harper, who had led the investigation, reflected on the complexities of the case. She and her team received praise for their thorough work. But the case also highlighted the challenges of dealing with such high-profile investigations. The community recognized their dedication, and local media outlets frequently featured interviews with Detective Harper discussing the challenges and achievements of the case. In Greensboro, the case remained a topic of discussion. It served as a reminder of the deep personal impacts of crime and the legal system's role in seeking justice. The city tried to move on from the tragedy, but the story of Jared Mitchell and Amanda Mitchell continued to be a part of local history, remembered for its emotional depth and the lessons it imparted. This case is a stark reminder of how betrayal and desperation can lead to unimaginable acts. Jared Mitchell's story is a tragic tale of love, betrayal, and revenge, highlighting the dark depths of human emotion. The victim in this story is Henry Lan, a 57-year-old successful CFO of Blue Shield, one of the largest insurance companies in the state of North Carolina. Henry was a pillar of the community, living in a $1.2 million colonial-style mansion in the affluent neighborhood of Governor's Club in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Married to Audrey Lan, a former Miss Massachusetts, for 30 years. Henry relished his role as a devoted father. He had raised 3 children, Alex, Ben, and Claire, all of whom had gone on to attend prestigious Ivy League colleges. Henry was known for his unwavering dedication to his family and his impeccable work ethic. He was a devout Catholic, the generous philanthropist, and a respected leader in his field. He was 57 years old and in the prime of his life. But in January of 2009, Henry's life would take a tragic turn. Henry Lan would be found dead in his own home under circumstances that baffled investigators. The once idyllic image of his life would begin to unravel, revealing hidden secrets and complex relationships. Who killed Henry Lan and why? How did the killer get into his secure home, and how did he escape without leaving any traces? What secrets did Henry hide behind his perfect facade, and what clues did he leave behind? This is the story of Henry Lan, a man who had everything and lost it all in a matter of seconds. The morning of January 19, 2009 was supposed to be a normal day for Henry Lan, a 57-year-old CFO of a leading insurance company in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. He had woken up early, as usual, and headed to his home office to check his emails and prepare for a conference call. He had a busy schedule ahead of him, but he was looking forward to spending the weekend with his wife, Audrey, who was returning from a trip to Boston to visit her sister. But Henry's plans were abruptly cut short by a deadly intruder. Sometime between 8 and 9 a.m., someone entered Henry's office through a broken window on the ground floor of the building. The intruder climbed the stairs to the second floor, where Henry's office was located, and shot him once in the chest with a 9mm handgun. The bullet pierced Henry's heart, killing him instantly. The intruder then fled the scene, leaving behind no clues or motives. Henry's body was discovered by Audrey, who arrived home around 9:30 a.m. She had taken a taxi from the airport, as Henry had told her he would be busy and couldn't pick her up. She entered the house through the front door, using her spare key, and called out for Henry. When she got no answer, she went upstairs to his office,
thinking he might be on the phone. She opened the door and saw him slumped in his chair, blood staining his shirt. His computer was still on, showing a Word document with some financial figures. She screamed and called 911. The police would arrive within minutes and cordoned off the crime scene, baffled by the motiveless murder of Henry Lan. Who would want to kill such a successful and beloved person? Was it a random act of violence or a carefully planned assassination? And how did the killer manage to escape without being seen or heard? These were the questions that haunted everyone as they tried to unravel the mystery of Henry's death. As the news of Henry Lan's death spread, the Chapel Hill community was stunned and saddened. Henry was a respected and successful CFO of a major insurance company, as well as a loving husband and father of 3. He had no known enemies or troubles, and his life seemed perfect. Who would want to kill him, and why? The police, led by Detective George Drankles, were determined to find out. They arrived at Henry's house shortly after his wife, Audrey, called 911. She'd have found him dead in his home office, shot in the chest, with his computer still on. She had just returned from a trip to Boston, where she had visited her sister. She told the police that Henry had stayed behind to work and that they had spoken on the phone the night before. She said he sounded normal and happy and that he had no plans to meet anyone that morning. The police searched the house and the office, looking for clues. They found no signs of forced entry, except for a broken window on the ground floor near the back door. The window was covered by a curtain, and the police speculated that the killer had used it to enter and exit the building. However, nothing was missing or disturbed. Henry's wallet, laptop, cell phone, and other valuables were all in place. The police also found no fingerprints, DNA, or other traces of the killer. The only piece of evidence they had was the bullet that had killed Henry. It was a 9mm round fired from a handgun. The police ran a ballistics test, hoping to match it to a registered weapon, but the results came back negative. The gun was either unregistered or had been modified to avoid detection. The police interviewed Henry's coworkers, neighbors, friends, and family, hoping to find a motive or a suspect. They learned that Henry was a hard-working and honest businessman who had worked for the same insurance company for over 20 years. He had risen through the ranks to become the CFO, earning a 6-figure salary and a reputation for integrity. He had no conflicts or disputes with anyone at work, as far as anyone knew. He was also a devoted family man who had raised 3 children with Audrey, his wife of 30 years. All of his children had graduated from Ivy League colleges and were pursuing their own careers. Henry had a close relationship with all of them and was proud of their achievements. He also had a large circle of friends who described him as generous, kind, and fun-loving. He had no vices or secrets as far as anyone knew. He was a model citizen who had everything to live for. The police were baffled by the seemingly motiveless murder of Henry Lan. They had no leads, no suspects, no witnesses. Just a dead body, a bullet, and a broken window. They had a mystery that defied explanation and a case that would haunt them until it was solved. As the police searched for clues and motives in the murder of Henry Lan, they turned their attention to his wife, Audrey Lan. Audrey, a 52-year-old homemaker and mother of 3, had been married to Henry for 30 years. Audrey had supported Henry's career while raising their 3 children who had all followed in their father's footsteps and attended Ivy League colleges. Audrey and Henry seemed to have a happy and stable marriage with no signs of trouble or infidelity. Audrey had an alibi for the morning of the murder. She had been in Boston visiting her sister, who had recently undergone surgery for cancer. She had flown back to Chapel Hill on the same day, taking a taxi from the airport to her house. She had found Henry's body in his home office and had immediately called 911. She had been hysterical and inconsolable, according to the first responders. She had cooperated with the police and had given them access to her phone, laptop, and bank accounts. She had nothing to hide, she had said. But the police had a nagging suspicion that Audrey was not telling the whole truth.
They had learned that Henry had a life insurance policy worth $1 million and that Audrey was the sole beneficiary. They had also discovered that Audrey had secretly taken out a second mortgage on their house without Henry's knowledge. She had accumulated a large debt due to her addiction to online gambling. She'd been playing poker and slots on various websites, such as PokerStars and Full Tilt Poker, using fake names and credit cards. She had lost thousands of dollars and had been unable to pay back her loans. She had been desperate for money, a way out of her financial troubles. The police confronted Audrey with their findings and asked her to take a polygraph test. Audrey agreed, but failed the test miserably. She had lied about her gambling problem and her debt. Audrey Lan, the seemingly devoted wife and mother, had turned out to be a troubled addict. She had shocked and devastated her family, friends, and community. She can become the prime suspect in the case of Henry Lan's murder. The police were puzzled by the murder of Henry Lan, a successful and respected CFO of a large insurance company in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. They had only a dead body, a bullet, a broken window, and a mystery that seemed unsolvable. But then a breakthrough. The police discovered a hidden folder on Henry's computer, containing a trove of emails, photos, and documents. The folder revealed a shocking secret. Henry had another wife, whom he had married 10 years ago and whom he had kept hidden from his first wife, Audrey. The other wife was Jill Miller Lane, a 51-year-old manager of a kindergarten in Raleigh, a city about 30 miles away from Chapel Hill. The police tracked down Jill and confronted her with their findings. Jill was shocked and devastated, not only by Henry's death, but also by his deception. She had no idea that he had another wife and family, who he had never mentioned to her. She had believed that he was divorced and that she was his only wife. She had trusted him and loved him and had no reason to doubt him. She had no involvement in his murder, she swore. According to Jill, she had met Henry online on a dating website called Harmony, where they had both lied about their marital status. They had fallen in love and had eloped in Las Vegas. Without telling anyone, they had rented an apartment in Raleigh where they had lived together on weekends, while Henry worked in Chapel Hill during the week. Jill had 2 children from a previous marriage, whom Henry had treated as his own. He had paid for their education, their hobbies, and their vacations. He had been a loving husband and a caring stepfather, according to Jill. The police interrogated Jill and searched her apartment. They found no evidence of foul play or any connection to the killer. They also verified her alibi for the morning of the murder. She had been at work at the kindergarten, where she had several witnesses. She had a clean record and no criminal history. She had no motive or means to kill Henry. Jill Miller Lane, the second wife of Henry Lan, had turned out to be an innocent victim of his lies. She had been duped and betrayed by the man she loved, who had led a double life. She had shocked and confused the investigators, who had to look elsewhere for answers. She had added a new twist to the case of Henry Lan's murder. As the investigation into Henry Lan's murder continued, the police uncovered another shocking revelation. Henry had a third wife, Tonya Sanchez, a 22-year-old nursing student at the University of North Carolina. Tonya and Henry had met at a Starbucks near the campus in September 2008 and had a whirlwind romance. Henry proposed to Tonya in December, and they eloped to Las Vegas on New Year's Eve. Tonya was blissfully unaware of Henry's other marriages and believed she was his one and only love. According to her, she had lived in a small apartment, while Henry had visited her sporadically, telling her he was busy with work. Tonya had believed that Henry was divorced and that she was his only wife. She had also believed that he was wealthy and that she would inherit his fortune. The police interrogated Tonya at the Chapel Hill Police Department. They asked her about her relationship with Henry, her whereabouts on the day of the murder, and her knowledge of Henry's finances. Tonya was visibly shaken and emotional during the questioning. She insisted that she loved Henry and had nothing to do with his death. She said she had been at school, attending a biology class, where she had several witnesses. She said she had no clue about Henry's other wives or his money. She said she was shocked and devastated by the news. The police checked Tonya's alibi and found it to be true.
They also searched her apartment and found no evidence of any involvement in the murder. They could not find any connection between Tonya and the killer. Tonya was released from custody, but remained under suspicion. The police wondered if Tonya was telling the truth, or if she was a clever liar who had orchestrated a perfect crime. The case of Henry Lan's murder took a surprising twist when the police uncovered a shocking secret on Tonya Sanchez's phone. Tonya, a 22-year-old student at the University of North Carolina, was Henry's third and youngest wife. She had eloped with him to Las Vegas on New Year's Eve, unaware of his other marriages. But Tonya was not the faithful spouse she claimed to be. She was cheating on Henry with another man. The police found a series of sexually explicit text messages between Tonya and a lover. The lover was Danny Volton, a 23-year-old college student and Tonya's classmate. The messages revealed that Tonya and Danny had been having a passionate affair since November 2008 when they met at a local gym. The messages also showed that Tonya and Danny had a plan to get rid of Henry and run away with his money. One of the messages, dated January 15, 2009, read, "Babe, I can't wait to be with you. Just a few more days and we'll be free. Henry is leaving for a business trip tomorrow. He'll be gone for a week. This is our chance. We have to do it now." Another message, dated January 16, 2009, read, "I love you, Tonya. I'm ready to do this. I have a gun. I'll be at your place tonight. We'll make it look like a robbery. No one will suspect us. Trust me, baby. We'll be rich and happy." The police were stunned by this discovery. They realized that Tonya and Danny were the prime suspects in Henry's murder. They had conspired to kill him and make it look like a break-in. They had hoped to cash in on his life insurance policy and his estate, and had underestimated the police's ability to trace their phone records and expose their plot. The case of Henry Lan's murder was about to take a dramatic turn. The police had uncovered a shocking secret on Tonya Sanchez's phone. She was having an affair with another man, and they had planned to kill Henry for his money. But who was this man, and how did he execute the murder? The police traced the phone number of Tonya's lover and identified him as Danny Volton, a 23-year-old UNC student. Danny was a handsome and charming young man who had met Tonya in November 2008 when they met at a local gym. They had hit it off instantly and soon began a passionate affair. Danny was also a greedy and ruthless schemer who had learned about Henry's wealth and decided to get his hands on it. He had also manipulated Tonya with love of lies and greed. Danny had convinced Tonya to marry Henry, telling her it was the only way to secure his fortune. He had also persuaded Tonya to help him kill Henry and claim his money. He had told her that Henry was cheating on her and that he deserved to die. He had also told her that he loved her and that they would run away together after the murder. On January 19, 2009, Danny put the plan into action. He drove to Henry's house in Chapel Hill, armed with a gun he had bought online. He found Henry in his home office, working on his computer. He shot him once in the chest, killing him instantly. Then he left the scene, making sure to leave no traces behind. Afterwards, he called Tonya and told her it was done. They celebrated their success and looked forward to their wealthy future together. But their future was short-lived. The police traced Danny's phone and found him at his dorm room. They arrested him and searched his room. They found the 9mm handgun that had killed Henry, hidden under his bed. They also found a plane ticket to Colombia, booked for the next day. Danny had planned to escape with Tonya after killing Henry, but his plan had failed and he had been caught. The police had solved the case of Henry Lan's murder, but the victim's family was left with a bitter taste. They had learned that Henry had betrayed them with his bigamy, and that he had been killed by his greedy and unfaithful wife and her lover. They felt a mix of relief and anguish as they tried to cope with the loss of their father and husband. The case of Henry Lan's murder reached its climax in the courtroom. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Isabel Meters, a seasoned and respected lawyer, built a strong case against Danny Volton, the 23-year-old UNC student who had killed Henry for his money.
Mears presented the evidence of Danny's affair with Tonia Sanchez, Henry's bigamous third wife, and their plan to murder him and inherit his fortune. Mears also showed the jury the sexually explicit text messages between Danny and Tonia, which revealed their motive and their method. Mears argued that Danny was a cold-blooded and greedy killer who had no remorse for his actions. The defense, represented by Stephen McPherson, a renowned and aggressive attorney, tried to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. McPherson challenged the validity of the phone records, claiming they could have been tampered with. McPherson also suggested that Tonia was the real mastermind behind the murder and that Danny was a knave and manipulated lover who had been coerced into killing Henry. McPherson appealed to the jury's sympathy, portraying Danny as a young and impressionable man who had made a terrible mistake. The trial lasted for 2 weeks and was closely followed by the public. The victim's family attended every day of the trial, hoping for justice. They had to endure the painful details of Henry's death and the shocking revelations of his bigamy. They also had to face the accused killer, who showed no signs of remorse or guilt. The jury deliberated for 3 hours and returned with a verdict of guilty. Danny Volton was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge said that Danny had committed a heinous and premeditated crime and that he deserved the maximum penalty. The victim's family felt a sense of relief and closure as they saw Danny being escorted out of the courtroom. They also felt a mix of anguish and confusion as they tried to make sense of Henry's life and death. The case of Henry Lan's murder had a profound impact on the lives of all those involved, especially his wife and family, his mistress and accomplice, and his victim's family. Audrey Lan, Henry's first and legal wife, who had been married to him for 30 years, tried to cope with the grief and the shock of learning about his double life. She sought comfort in her children, who had also been devastated by their father's death and deception. She also sought counseling for her gambling addiction and joined a support group for widows. She hoped to find peace and forgiveness and to move on with her life. Jill Miller Lan, Henry's second wife, who had been married to him for 10 years, also struggled to deal with the pain and the anger of being lied to and cheated on. She focused on her children, who had lost their stepfather, who they had loved and respected. She also focused on her work as the manager of a kindergarten in Raleigh, where she found joy and purpose in helping young children. She hoped to heal and to find love again and to put the past behind her. Tonia Sanchez, Henry's third and youngest wife, who had been married to him for 6 months, faced the consequences of her actions and her choices. She had been an accomplice to murder and had betrayed and killed the man she had married. She had also been betrayed and used by her lover, Danny Volton, who had manipulated her into helping to kill Henry. She returned to her home country of Colombia without a degree from UNC. She had only regret and remorse and the knowledge that she had wasted her life. The community, which had been shocked and saddened by the murder, tried to recover and to learn from the tragedy. They realized that appearances can be deceiving and that people can have dark and hidden sides. They also realized that greed and lust can lead to violence and death. They hoped to find wisdom and compassion and to prevent such crimes from happening again. And so ends another chapter in the true crime case files. The chilling case of Henry Lan's murder serves as a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly idyllic lives. Join us next time as we delve into another perplexing criminal mystery. Maggie Luen, a warm-hearted and hospitable woman, was a 45-year-old housewife who took great pride in her role as a mother to her 2 children, Mocha and Tucker. Married to local dentist Dr. Dean Luen DDS, Maggie dedicated herself to maintaining the perfect household. However, beneath her cheerful exterior, Maggie yearned for excitement and fulfillment beyond the confines of domesticity. Desperate to escape the monotony of her everyday life in Elgin, Illinois, she found solace in the local women's book club. The book club, known as the Literary Ladies, was a close-knit group of women who met every Tuesday evening at each of their houses. Led by the charismatic and enigmatic Linda Bernardino Scalco, the club provided an escape from the mundane reality of their suburban lives. They discussed everything from classic literature to contemporary bestsellers, with a particular love of the novelist Joyce Lehman.
They loved to share their thoughts and opinions over cups of steaming coffee and plates of homemade sugar cookies. Maggie, with her insatiable thirst for literary adventure, quickly became an active member of the book club. She relished the intellectual discussions, the camaraderie, and the opportunity to step out of her comfort zone. The club became her sanctuary, a place where she could explore her hidden desires and dreams. Little did Maggie know that her involvement with the literary ladies would lead her down a dark and treacherous path. As the days grew colder in January 1993, a sinister plot began to unfold within the confines of the book club. Secrets, jealousy, and betrayal simmered beneath the surface, threatening to shatter the illusion of harmony. On a fateful day, January 23, 1993, with the weather bleak and cold, Maggie's life came to a tragic end. Her body was discovered in her own bathroom, brutally beaten to death with a claw hammer. It was Karen Evans, Maggie's closest friend and next-door neighbor, who made the horrifying discovery. Karen, a petite woman with a heart-shaped face, auburn hair, and a heart of gold, had gone over to Maggie's house for their regular Saturday morning coffee and chat session. Little did she know that this visit would forever change her life. As Karen entered the house, she immediately noticed something was amiss. The air felt heavy with an unspoken tension. The usual warmth and laughter that filled the air during their weekly get-togethers were replaced by an eerie silence. Concerned, Karen called out for Maggie, but there was no response. She made her way towards the bathroom. As Karen made her way up the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest, she noticed a faint smell of iron in the air. The bathroom door stood ajar, casting an eerie glow onto the hallway. With trembling hands, she pushed open the door, and what she saw would haunt her forever. Maggie's lifeless body lay sprawled on the cold tile floor, her once vibrant eyes now vacant and lifeless. Blood stained the walls, and the claw hammer, the murder weapon, lay beside her. Upon opening the bathroom door, Karen's worst fears were realized. Karen's initial reaction was one of shock and disbelief. She couldn't comprehend the brutality of what she was witnessing. Panic surged through her veins as she frantically dialed 911, her voice trembling as she relayed the grisly scene to the dispatcher. News of the murder spread like wildfire through the tight-knit community of Elgin. The town was gripped with a sense of unease, as neighbors locked their doors and whispered about the possibility of a killer lurking among them. On that fateful winter day of January 23, 1993, tragedy struck the quiet town of Elgin, Illinois. The murder of Maggie Luen, a beloved housewife and mother, sent shockwaves through the community, leaving everyone in disbelief. The police, led by Detective Carl Bledsoe, wasted no time in launching a thorough investigation into this heinous crime. Arriving promptly at the crime scene, the police were met with a chilling sight. The bathroom, once a place of tranquility and cleanliness, now bore the grim evidence of a brutal attack. Bloodstains splattered across the walls, and floor told a story of violence and terror. It was clear that Maggie had been mercilessly beaten to death with a claw hammer, a weapon that had been turned against her in her own home. Detective Bledsoe and his team meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene, leaving no stone unturned. They meticulously collected any potential evidence, ensuring that no detail went unnoticed. Fingerprints were carefully lifted, blood samples were taken, and any possible evidence was meticulously cataloged. As the investigation unfolded, the detectives began to piece together the last moments of Maggie's life. Interviews with friends and family revealed that she had been an active member of a local women's book club. Could there be a connection between her involvement in the club and her untimely demise? The detectives delved deeper into the lives of the book club members, scrutinizing their backgrounds and relationships. They discovered that tensions had been simmering beneath the surface, hidden behind the facade of friendship. Petty jealousies, secret affairs, and whispered rumors plagued the seemingly innocent lives of these women. The media, hungry for a sensational story, descended upon Elgin, amplifying the already palpable tension in the air. News outlets like the local newspaper, the Elgin Courier, and the television station, WGN-TV, covered the case extensively, eager to capture every twist and turn. The town, once known for its peaceful, boringly Midwestern charm, became a hub of speculation and intrigue. Days turned into weeks,
and the investigation continued to unfold. Detective Bledsoe analyzed the evidence, sifting through countless leads and alibis. The pressure to solve this case weighed heavily on his shoulders as the community anxiously awaited justice for Maggie Luen. Linda Bernardino Scalco, a 61-year-old local librarian and esteemed leader of the Women's Book Club, found herself at the center of suspicion in the shocking murder of Maggie Luen. Known for her bookish exterior, sharp intellect, and extensive knowledge of literature, Linda had always presented herself as a respected member of the community. However, as the investigation unfolded, a hidden side to Linda's life began to emerge, casting doubt on her innocence. The Women's Book Club, once thought to be a gathering of literary enthusiasts, turned out to be far more than meets the eye. Behind closed doors, this seemingly innocent group transformed into a secret society of female sexual exploration, engaging in clandestine activities such as swinging and orgies that shocked the conservative and very Midwestern community of Elgin, Illinois. The members of the club, including Linda and Maggie, indulged in a world of forbidden sexual desires, where erotic boundaries were pushed and inhibitions were cast aside. As the investigators delved deeper into Linda's background, they discovered a trail of secrets and hidden rendezvous. The evidence pointed to a complicated web of relationships and encounters that seemed inconceivable in the quiet suburban town. The police meticulously examined phone records, uncovering late-night calls and cryptic messages exchanged between Linda, Maggie, and the other members of the book club. The investigation revealed a complex network of desire and betrayal, where passion and jealousy intertwined. The motive behind Maggie's brutal murder remained elusive, leaving investigators puzzled. Linda's demeanor during the interrogations only added to the enigma surrounding her. At times, Linda, who hid a passionate and deeply sexual nature, displayed flashes of anger, vehemently denying any involvement in the crime. Yet, in other moments, she exuded an eerie calmness, as if she held the key to a dark secret that could unravel the entire mystery. As Detective Carl Bledsoe and his team continued to piece together the puzzle, they found themselves entangled in a web of deceit and desire, where nothing was as it seemed. With each new lead, the truth seemed to slip further away, leaving the investigators and the community desperate for answers. Karen Evans, a close friend and neighbor of Maggie Luen, became the focus of the investigation as the second suspect in the murder case. Known for her friendly and cheerful demeanor, Karen appeared to be the epitome of suburban normalcy. However, behind closed doors, a darker side of Karen was revealed. During the course of the investigation, it was uncovered that Karen and Maggie had a sexual relationship within the Women's Book Club. While this revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case, it also shed light on a potential motive for the crime. Karen also admitted to feeling jealous of Maggie's sexual encounters with Linda Bernardino Scalco, the leader of the book/secret sex club. The police interrogated Karen extensively, carefully observing her reactions and demeanor. They sought to uncover the truth behind Maggie's murder and determine Karen's involvement, if any. In the interrogation room, Karen's emotions ranged from anger to sadness, as she struggled to come to terms with her feelings of jealousy and betrayal. The investigators probed deeper, questioning Karen about her relationship with Maggie and the dynamics within the book club. As the interview progressed, Karen revealed that she had developed strong feelings for Maggie over time. She admitted to feeling a sense of possessiveness and resentment towards Linda, who had also engaged in sexual activities with Maggie. Karen's jealousy had intensified, leading to a growing tension between the three women. The investigators delved into Karen's background, seeking any possible connections to the crime. They discovered that Karen had a history of emotional instability and had previously sought therapy for her jealousy issues. This revelation added another dimension to the case, as the police considered the possibility of Karen's emotions spiraling out of control. Furthermore, the investigators uncovered evidence that Karen had been researching ways to deal with jealousy and anger. They found books and articles on self-help, anger management, and relationships in her possession. These findings raised suspicions about Karen's state of mind and her potential involvement in Maggie's murder. As the investigation continued, the police meticulously examined Karen's alibi and cross-referenced it with witness testimonies and physical evidence. They also analyzed Karen's phone records, seeking any communication that could link her to the crime. Every detail was scrutinized in their pursuit of the truth, The case of Maggie Luen's murder had taken a complex turn, with Karen Evans emerging as a key figure in the investigation. The police were determined to uncover the truth behind Maggie's untimely demise and determine Karen's role in the shocking crime. The investigation into the murder of Maggie Luen took an unexpected turn as new evidence emerged, providing a glimmer of hope for the dedicated team of detectives. On a frigid January day in 1993, the police made a breakthrough that could potentially crack the case wide open. The weather, a bone-chilling cold that gripped Elgin, Illinois, played a crucial role in this significant discovery. It was on January 27th, when the temperature plummeted to a freezing -10 degrees Fahrenheit, that a key piece of evidence was uncovered. Detective Carl Bledsoe and his team meticulously analyzed the data from various sources, including local meteorological records and eyewitness testimonies. It was during their investigation that they stumbled upon a witness who had been in close proximity to Maggie's house on the night of her murder. Howard Johnson, a resident of the neighboring street, recalled hearing a loud commotion emanating from Maggie's house at around 9:30 p.m. He had been outside, shoveling the snow that had accumulated during the day, when he heard what sounded like a heated argument followed by a series of thuds. Detective Bledsoe immediately recognized the significance of Mr. Johnson's account. The freezing temperatures that night had caused the freshly fallen snow to preserve the footprints left behind by anyone who had been near the crime scene. The detective and his team rushed to Maggie's house, carefully combing through the snow-covered ground for any signs of footprints. Their efforts paid off when they discovered a set of distinct footprints leading away from Maggie's house and towards the nearby park. The footprints were carefully measured and documented, revealing the precise stride length and shoe size of the individual responsible for Maggie's murder. The police compared these footprints to the shoe sizes of the prime suspects, Linda Bernardino Scalco and Karen Evans. The results were shocking. While Linda's shoe size did not match the footprints, Karen's shoe size was an exact match. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation team, raising questions about Karen's potential involvement in the crime. With this crucial evidence in hand, the detectives intensified their interrogation of Karen, scrutinizing her every word and reaction. The pressure mounted as Karen's initial calmness gave way to moments of unease and anxiety. The investigation was now on a knife's edge, with the truth hanging precariously in the balance. In the ongoing investigation into the murder of Maggie Luen, a new suspect emerged: Dr. Susan Chiong, a 42-year-old dentist and the newest member of the Women's Book Club. Dr. Chiong, known for her aloof demeanor and mysterious past, had become a person of interest in this chilling case. Dr. Chiong's personal life was shrouded in secrecy, with little known about her background or motivations. However, the police uncovered some intriguing details that may shed light on her possible involvement in this heinous crime. One key piece of information that came to light is that Dr. Chiong did not engage in the sexual activities that took place within the book club. While other members indulged in secret liaisons, Dr. Chiong remained detached, keeping her personal life tightly guarded. Another intriguing aspect of this case was Dr. Chiong's connection to a man named Dr. Dean Luen. It had been revealed that Dr. Chiong had broken the rules of the book club by engaging in sex with a man, none other than Dr. Luen, a fellow dentist, who happened to be Maggie Luen's husband. This revelation raised eyebrows and sparked speculation about the extent of Dr. Chiong's involvement in the unraveling of the book club's secrets. Had she told her lover about his wife's secret sex life? As the police interrogate Dr. Chiong, they carefully observed her reactions and demeanor. Every word, every gesture was analyzed for any signs of guilt or involvement in this heinous crime. She admitted she had told Dean about his wife's dealings in the book club's secret. Might this be the breakthrough the investigators desperately need? The shocking truth behind the murder of Maggie Luen, a seemingly ordinary housewife from Elgin, Illinois, had finally been unveiled. After a thorough investigation, it was revealed that the murderer was none other than Dr. Dean Luen DDS, Maggie's own husband and a local dentist. The motive behind this heinous crime was a toxic combination of jealousy and desire. Driven by his intense longing for his wife and enraged by her alleged betrayal, Dr. Luen confronted Maggie in the bathroom of their home on that fateful day in January of 1993. The details of the confrontation are chilling. In a fit of anger, Maggie admitted that yes, she had engaged in sexual relationships with the members of her women's book club. a secret gathering that turned out to be a lesbian swingers group. This revelation pushed Dr. Luen over the edge, and he resorted to brutal violence, wielding a claw hammer to mercilessly beat his wife to death. The police meticulously pieced together the evidence, uncovering a web of deceit and hidden desires. The investigation revealed that Dr. Luen had discovered his wife's secret through Dr. Susan Chiong, a fellow dentist and the newest member of the book club. Dr. Chiong had broken the rules of the club by engaging in a sexual relationship with Dr. Dean Miller, to whom she divulged the secrets of the book club and Maggie's infidelity. The arrest of Dr. Luen sent shockwaves through the community of Elgin, as the once respected dentist was exposed as a cold-blooded murderer. The media frenzy that followed the revelation of this true crime case captivated Chicagoland, with newspapers and television stations covering every detail of the investigation and subsequent trial. The trial that followed Dr. Dean Luen's arrest for the murder of his wife, Maggie Luen, gripped the community of Elgin, Illinois in January of 1993. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as the prosecution, led by District Attorney Geppetto Zempic, a proud Maltese immigrant, presented a compelling case against the accused. The defense, represented by Defense Attorney C. Alice Powell, sought to challenge the prosecution's narrative, delving into the complex emotions that fueled the murder. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was packed with spectators eager to witness the proceedings. Local news outlets, such as the Elgin Gazette and the Evening Star, provided updates on the trial, ensuring that the community remained informed. The trial became the talk of the town, with people discussing the case over cups of coffee at the popular local diner, Joe's Cafe. The prosecution painted a vivid picture of the crime, emphasizing the brutality of Maggie's murder and the devastating impact it had on her family. They presented evidence, including the claw hammer used as the murder weapon, which had been found hidden in Dr. Luen's dental office. The defense, on the other hand, sought to humanize the accused, delving into his troubled past and the complex emotions that led to the tragic event. Maggie's family, including her children Mocha and Tucker, sat through the trial, their grief palpable. They listened intently as witnesses took the stand, recounting the events leading up to Maggie's death. The emotional toll on the family was evident as they grappled with the details that emerged during the trial. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Dr. Dean Luen DDS was found guilty of the murder of his wife. The courtroom erupted with mixed emotions, as some felt that justice had been served, while others questioned whether the punishment was sufficient. The sentencing, which took place a few weeks later, saw Dr. Luen receive a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The impact of the guilty verdict reverberated through the community, leaving a lasting impression on those involved. The Luen family, along with Maggie's friends and neighbors, were forever changed by the events that unfolded during the trial. As the trial came to a close, the community of Elgin slowly began to heal. The book club, once a source of intrigue and scandal, disbanded, its members scattered. The town returned to its familiar routines, but the memory of Maggie's murder lingered, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. In the aftermath of the highly publicized trial that captivated the community, life slowly began to regain a sense of normalcy for Susan, Karen, and Linda, as well as the other individuals involved in this tragic case. Dr. Susan Chiong, the 42-year-old dentist and newest member of the book club, found solace in her work. She threw herself into her dental practice, dedicating long hours to her patients and honing her skills. Susan's patients, unaware of her connection to the murder case, continued to trust her with their dental needs, allowing her to gradually regain a sense of normalcy. Karen Evans, Maggie's closest friend and neighbor, found solace in the support of her community. Elgin, Illinois, a tight-knit and boringly suburban town, rallied around Karen, offering their condolences and support during her darkest moments. Linda Bernardino Scalco, the 61-year-old librarian and leader of the Women's Book Club, retreated from the public eye. The scandal surrounding the book club's true nature had tarnished Linda's reputation within the community. She resigned from her position at the local library and relocated to a small town in Florida, hoping to start anew. The Luen children, Tucker and Mocha, sought therapy to cope with the trauma they had endured. Their sessions focused on healing, forgiveness, and finding a way to move forward. Their resilience and strength in the face of tragedy inspired those around them. As the years passed, Elgin, Illinois, a town forever marked by this tragedy, continued to grow and evolve, its residents determined to create a future that honored the memory of Maggie and brought healing to their community. As we conclude this episode of True Crime Case Files, we reflect on the tragic story of Maggie Luen, whose death unlocked the secrets of a women's book club. This harrowing tale serves as a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. Michael Ostito, 38, was a software engineer living in Asheville, North Carolina, with his wife, Vivian, and daughter Braille. Known for his quiet demeanor, Michael was a tech enthusiast who loved to hike and play chess. He graduated from the University of North Carolina with a degree in computer science. Michael worked for a local tech company where his colleagues admired his problem-solving skills and dedication. He dreamed of starting his own tech company and was particularly excited about a new app idea he was developing. Isaac Arevin, 41, was a financial analyst who lived in Asheville as well. He was known for his intelligence and calm demeanor. Isaac graduated from Duke University with a degree in economics and worked for a prominent financial firm in the city. He and Michael were close friends, often discussing philosophy and technology. Isaac was single, valuing his friendships deeply and considering them his chosen family. He was respected at work for his thoughtful insights and steady presence. Melissa Moonbeam Brown, 29, was a yoga instructor and spiritual guide. She lived a vibrant and unconventional lifestyle, deeply committed to exploring alternative relationships and spiritual practices. Melissa was known for her radiant energy and fascination with love and connection. She dreamed of opening a holistic wellness center in Asheville. Her interest in unconventional sexual dynamics led her to form a polyamorous relationship, or throuple, with Michael and Isaac, something that Michael's wife, Vivian, tepidly agreed to. On March 17, 2012, the day before their deaths, Michael shared an article on Facebook about a financial seminar at the local community center. Melissa posted on Instagram, sharing her excitement about an upcoming retreat she was planning on goat yoga. The three of them checked into a Days Inn off the interstate, looking forward to a night of sexual escapades. Melissa was preparing spiritual activities, including yoga sessions and tantric meditations, to strengthen their bonds and enhance their sexual creativity. However, their plans were tragically cut short. Their lives were brutally ended in an unexpected and violent manner, leaving the community in shock. On the morning of March 18, 2012, at around 10 a.m., the weather was overcast and cool in Asheville, North Carolina. Diana Lopez, a housekeeper at the local Days Inn, was going about her usual routine. As she approached room 214, she knocked and called out, but there was no response. Assuming the guest had checked out early, Diana used her master key to enter the room. The scene that greeted her was beyond anything she had ever experienced. The bloodied corpses of Michael Ostito, Isaac Arevin, and Melissa Moonbeam Brown were lying naked in the bed, their faces disfigured and unrecognizable. In the bathroom, their limbs had been severed and stuffed into the toilet, creating an unbelievably horrific sight. Diana was initially frozen in shock, unable to comprehend the brutality of the scene before her. Diana quickly regained her composure and rushed out of the room to call 911. Her voice trembled as she reported the gruesome discovery, and she struggled to describe the scene to the dispatcher. Within minutes, police and emergency responders were on their way to the Days Inn. News of the gruesome discovery quickly spread through Asheville. Local media, including the Asheville Citizen-Times, reported on the triple homicide in the Days Inn became a focal point for both reporters and curious onlookers. The community, known for its peaceful and artistic atmosphere, was stunned by the brutality of the murders. The police presence at the Days Inn remained heavy throughout the day as detectives and forensic teams worked tirelessly to gather evidence and piece together what had happened. The shocking nature of the crime left a deep impact on everyone involved, from the officers and detectives to the residents of Asheville. The Asheville police arrived swiftly at the Days Inn on the morning of March 18, 2012. Detectives Jason Milkmaid Mullen and Lisa Ramirez, known for their thorough and insightful investigative skills, were called in to lead the case. Detective Mullen, a meticulous and detail-oriented investigator, had worked on several high-profile cases in Asheville. Detective Ramirez, known for her sharp instincts and ability to read people, complemented Mullen's methodical approach. As they entered room 214, they were struck by the brutality of the scene. Blood splatters covered the walls and furniture, and the bed was soaked in blood. The bodies of Michael Ostedo, Isaac Aravan, and Melissa Moonbeam Brown lay in the bed, their faces unrecognizable and their limbs severed and stuffed into the toilet. The detectives quickly identified a katana, or Japanese sword, as the murder weapon. The presence of such an unusual weapon added a layer of complexity to the case. The detectives began their investigation by thoroughly documenting the crime scene. They took numerous photographs and collected samples for DNA analysis. Luminol was used to detect blood traces that were not immediately visible. The forensic team carefully gathered fibers, hair samples, and any other potential evidence that might provide clues about the killer. Detectives Mullen and Ramirez also spoke with Diana Lopez, the housekeeper who had discovered the bodies. Diana, still shaken, described the horrifying scene she had encountered and her immediate reaction. Her detailed account helped the detectives piece together the timeline of events leading up to the discovery. Outside the motel room, the parking lot was cordoned off with yellow police tape, and officers began canvassing the area, speaking with other guests and staff members to gather any additional information. They learned that no one had seen or heard anything unusual that morning, adding to the mystery of how the murders had occurred without attracting attention. The Asheville Citizen-Times and local TV stations quickly picked up the story, reporting on the shocking triple homicide. The community, known for its peaceful, artistic vibe, was shaken by the brutal crime. Reporters and onlookers gathered near the Days Inn, seeking any updates on the investigation. As the day progressed, the detectives continued their meticulous work, hoping to find leads that would point them to the killer. The complexity of the crime scene and the unusual weapon used indicated a deeply personal and premeditated act of violence. The investigation was only beginning, but detectives Mullen and Ramirez were determined to uncover the truth behind the horrific murders. Vivian Ostedo, 36, was the first suspect the police investigated. Vivian was Michael Ostedo's wife, known for her outgoing personality and creative spirit. She worked as an art teacher at a local elementary school in Asheville and was often described as the life of the party. Despite her cheerful demeanor, Vivian harbored deep insecurities about her marriage, especially after Michael's involvement in a throuple with Isaac Aravan and Melissa Moonbeam Brown. Vivian initially agreed to the unconventional relationship to make Michael happy and to keep the family whole for her daughter Braille, but she soon found herself overwhelmed by jealousy and resentment. Her charisma often masked these underlying feelings, but close friends noticed changes in her behavior. A fact police found suspicious was that Vivian had a collection of Japanese objects, including a katana, inherited from her aunt, a travel agent who specialized in trips to Japan who coincidentally was under investigation for sex trafficking older women to Japan. Detectives Mullen and Ramirez brought Vivian in for questioning. During the interrogation, Vivian appeared calm and cooperative, but the detectives sensed an undercurrent of tension. They asked her about her relationship with Michael and the throuple arrangement. Vivian admitted she was struggling with the situation, but denied any involvement in the murders. She explained that she and Braille spent the weekend at a friend's house, trying to distance herself from the complicated relationship dynamics. The detectives found Vivian's alibi questionable and continued to press her for more details. Vivian's calm demeanor began to crack, revealing her deep-seated anger and frustration. She spoke of feeling neglected and betrayed by Michael's increasing affection for Isaac and Melissa. Despite her emotional outburst, Vivian maintained her innocence, insisting she had no part in the brutal killings. To gather more evidence, the police searched Vivian's home. They found the collection of Japanese objects, including katanas, which appeared to match the murder weapon found at the crime scene. Forensic analysis was conducted to determine if this katana was indeed the weapon used. The detectives also looked into Vivian's phone records and emails, searching for any incriminating communications. Vivian's friends and colleagues were interviewed as well. Many of them described her as a loving wife who was trying to support her husband's unconventional lifestyle despite her own discomfort. However,
A few noted that Vivian had recently become more withdrawn and seemed increasingly troubled. The investigation into Vivian Ostito's possible involvement in the murders continued to reveal new layers of complexity. Her deep feelings of jealousy and betrayal provided a potential motive, but the detectives needed concrete evidence to prove her guilt. As they delved deeper into her life and relationships, the case against Vivian grew stronger, but they were not yet ready to make an arrest. The second suspect the police investigated was Brian Foster. At 40 years old, Brian was a personal trainer in Asheville, known for his charm and physical fitness. He had a magnetic personality that attracted many clients, both men and women. An ardent practitioner of free love, Brian had a separate sexual relationship with both Michael and Vivian Ostito, outside of the throuple involving Isaac Arevin and Melissa Moonbeam Brown. Despite his sexual attraction to both Michael and Vivian, Brian was unaware of the tension brewing between them. Brian was brought in for questioning by detectives Mullen and Ramirez. When he arrived at the station, he appeared calm and cooperative. The detectives asked Brian about his relationships with Michael and Vivian. He explained that he enjoyed the sexual attention and affection from both, but had no knowledge of any serious issues in their marriage. Brian was shocked to hear about the murders and expressed his condolences for the victims. The detectives then asked Brian about his whereabouts during the weekend of the murders. Brian stated that he had been working at the gym and visiting friends in Florida. He provided names and contact information for his alibi. The detectives verified Brian's alibi, finding that he had been seen at a gym in Tampa and with friends during the time of the murders. The investigation into Brian Foster's possible involvement in the murders revealed no immediate evidence linking him to the crime. His alibi was solid, and there were no signs of violent tendencies. However, the detectives were not ready to rule him out completely. They continued to monitor his activities and communications, hoping to uncover any new information. As the investigation progressed, Brian's name remained on the list of suspects, but without concrete evidence, the detectives turned their focus to other potential leads. Brian's charm and cooperative nature made it difficult to determine if he was hiding something or truly innocent. The third suspect the police investigated was Luen Harris, 29. Luen was a yoga instructor and spiritual teacher known for her serene and calming presence. She lived in Asheville and was good friends with both Vivian Ostito and Melissa Moonbeam Brown. Luen had been introduced to the throuple as a potential fourth partner, but her involvement was more emotional than physical. Detectives Mullen and Ramirez brought Luen in for questioning. She appeared calm but worried. The detectives asked her about her feelings about the throuple. Luen admitted she was close to Vivian and found it hard to see her friend unhappy in her marriage. She denied having any role in the murders or in the throuple. She explained to them she was not interested in sex, and that, although she had the body of an adult woman, her true soul was that of a 19th century Swiss child named Berthold. The detectives then questioned Luen about her whereabouts during the weekend of the murders. Luen said she had been teaching a seminar on true souls in nearby Black Mountain. She provided a schedule of the retreat and names of participants who could confirm her alibi. She even told the detectives the identities of their true souls. Detective Mullen was that of a Chinese girl named Lu Mei, and Detective Ramirez had the soul of an ancient Indian guru named Pandichi. The detectives checked her alibi and found that Luen had been seen at the retreat for most of the weekend. Despite her alibi, the detectives continued to probe Luen's possible involvement. They searched her home and yoga studio, looking for any clues. They found several books on spirituality and healing, but nothing that directly connected her to the crime. They also checked her phone records and emails, hoping to find any communication that might hint at her involvement. Luen's calm and cooperative demeanor during the interrogation matched her usual personality. However, the detectives remained skeptical. They knew that people could hide their true intentions well. The police interviewed Luen's yoga students and colleagues. Most described her as peaceful and dedicated to her practice. No one reported seeing any signs of violent behavior or unusual actions. Despite this, the detectives continued to monitor Luen, aware that jealousy could be a powerful motive. The investigation into Luen Harris revealed no immediate evidence linking her to the murders. Her alibi was strong, and her background showed no history of violence. Nevertheless, the detectives kept her under surveillance, hoping to uncover any new information that might come to light.
After weeks of intense investigation, the police finally identified the murderer. On the morning of April 10, 2012, a breakthrough came when forensic analysis confirmed that the katana found at the crime scene matched the one in Vivian Ostito's collection. Detectives Mullen and Ramirez pieced together evidence from phone records, emails, and interviews, leading them to conclude that Vivian was the killer. Vivian, an art teacher, had a vibrant and charismatic personality that hid her deep insecurities. She felt neglected and betrayed by her husband Michael's growing sexual attachment to Isaac and Melissa. The throuple arrangement, which she initially accepted only to make Michael happy, became unbearable as she watched him drift further away. Vivian's jealousy and resentment reached a breaking point, driving her to commit the brutal murders. On the night of the crime, Vivian used her knowledge of Japanese swords to carry out the killings. Late at night, she waited until Michael, Isaac, and Melissa were asleep at the Days Inn before entering the room with the katana. In a fit of blind rage, she attacked them, ensuring their faces were unrecognizable and severing their limbs. She stuffed the limbs into the toilet, adding to the gruesomeness of the scene. The morning of Vivian's arrest was overcast, reflecting the somber mood. The police arrived at her home at 8 a.m., armed with a warrant. Vivian was taken by surprise, her calm facade quickly crumbling into shock and disbelief. She was handcuffed and led to the police car, her neighbors watching in stunned silence. As the police car drove away, Vivian's emotions ranged from shock to a haunting realization of what she had done. The once vibrant art teacher was now at the center of a horrifying crime. The news of her arrest spread quickly through Asheville, leaving the community reeling. Brian Foster and Lewin Harris, once suspects themselves, were equally shocked by the revelation. They had suspected Vivian's jealousy, but never imagined it would lead to such violence. Both faced their own emotional turmoil, dealing with the guilt of not foreseeing the tragic outcome. As Vivian Ostito faced the legal consequences of her actions, the community of Asheville tried to heal from the trauma. The police had unraveled a complicated web of relationships, jealousy, and betrayal to bring justice to the victims. The trial of Vivian Ostito began on October 12, 2012, in Asheville's Buncombe County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with media, including reporters from the Asheville Citizen-Times and local TV stations. The community followed the trial closely, eager for justice to be served. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Ray Reynolds, a seasoned lawyer known for his firm stance on violent crimes. Reynolds, 75, was confident and assertive, presenting a compelling case against Vivian. He detailed how her jealousy and resentment had driven her to commit the brutal murders. Reynolds showed the jury the forensic evidence linking the katana to Vivian and highlighted her motive rooted in emotional turmoil. Vivian's defense attorney, Rachel McAllister, was 38 and known for her empathetic approach to cases. McAllister argued that Vivian's actions were a result of temporary insanity brought on by the extreme stress and emotional pain from the throuple arrangement. She painted a picture of a woman pushed to her limits by a complicated and unorthodox relationship dynamic. McAllister called several witnesses who testified about Vivian's previously stable and kind nature, trying to evoke sympathy from the jury. Throughout the trial, the emotional reactions of the victims' families were palpable. Michael Ostito's family sat in the courtroom, their faces a mix of sorrow and anger. Melissa Moonbeam Brown's spiritual community members, known as the Sunshine Family, attended daily, holding ritual scarring sessions outside the courthouse. After 3 weeks of testimony and evidence, the jury reached a verdict. On October 22, 2012, Vivian Ostito was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, with the victims' families showing a mix of relief and grief. The judge sentenced Vivian to 3 consecutive life terms in prison. Vivian remained expressionless as the sentence was handed down, her once vibrant personality now a shadow of its former self. The sentencing brought a sense of closure to the victims' families, though the pain of their loss remained. Michael's family felt justice had been served, but they continued to mourn his untimely death. Melissa's spiritual community and Isaac's relatives hoped the verdict would bring some peace, though they knew the healing process would be long. Following Vivian Ostito's trial and sentencing, life began to slowly return to normal for those involved in the case. For the victims' families, the pain of their loss lingered, but the closure provided by the verdict brought a sense of peace. The detectives received commendations for their dedication and professionalism in solving the case. They continued to work on other investigations, though the memory of the gruesome murders stayed with them. The Asheville Police Department implemented new protocols for handling similar cases, ensuring a more coordinated and efficient response in the future. For Brian Foster and Luen Harris, life took unexpected turns after the trial. Brian, still reeling from the shock of Vivian's betrayal, decided to leave Asheville and start afresh in Tampa, Florida. He found solace in his work as a personal trainer, channeling his energy into helping others achieve their fitness goals. Luen, on the other hand, chose to deepen her spiritual practice, finding comfort in yoga and meditation. She opened her own studio in downtown Asheville, offering classes that focused on healing and inner peace. As the years passed, the memory of the triple homicide faded from the public consciousness, replaced by new events and headlines. Asheville continued to thrive as a vibrant and eclectic community, known for its art galleries, craft breweries, and scenic mountain views. But for those who had been directly impacted by the tragedy, the scars remained, a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. This concludes today's episode of True Crime Case Files. The story of Michael Ostito, Isaac Arevin, and Melissa Moonbeam Brown is a harrowing reminder of the complexities and potential dangers within unconventional relationships. Behind closed doors, hidden tensions and unaddressed emotions can lead to devastating outcomes.